Yo legends. Welcome to Fanfiction Legend. Grab your headphones, because today's story is about to hit different. Disclaimer. I do not claim ownership of this story. All rights belong to the original creators. Marvel, fighting against Avengers. Page 81. Rory has been keeping an eye on the movements of the Avengers and the Skrulls. Once a fight breaks out, it will be the best time for him to take action, a chance to eliminate both the Avengers and the Skrulls at the same time. But before that, Rory must first enrich his own strength to deal with the various legions around the Avengers. Since the appearance of the Dog King, Rory has gained a new understanding of the research on the enhancement of animals. Unfortunately, except for this one Dog King, the remaining 29 Dobermans, although also strengthened to a certain extent, none of them reached the level of the Dog King. The largest of the 29 is 2 sizes smaller than the Dog King. Maya Hansen compared the genetic data of all enhanced Doberman pinchers and found no problems. So he took the data to Rory and asked curiously, "Dr. Rory, I've screened all the data and didn't find anything special. Could it be a problem with the medicine used?" Rory put down the test tools and took off his gloves. He took the data sheet, looked through it carefully, and shook his head. It's not the medication. All Dobermans are using medication number 25. The problem is with these dogs. Finding out what causes the difference in strength between these Dobermans will be important for future animal biology experiments. Beast enhancements cannot transmit information like super soldiers, nor can they perform management or other services. Their only function is to fight. However, the benefit of beast strengthening is also obvious, that is loyalty. The same goes for Thanos. He will not incorporate the conquered races into his army. He only uses the vanguards he created because the vanguards are loyal enough. After looking through all the data, Rory, like Maya Hansen, found nothing special. Just when Rory was wondering if there was something wrong with his experiment, he suddenly thought of another possibility. When the 30 Dobermans were delivered, the king dog was extremely manic, while the remaining 29 seemed slightly gentler. This was the most obvious difference. Go and help me check the data of the violent gene. Among humans, there are those with mild tempers and those with bad tempers. Those with mild tempers are multifaceted in their thinking, while those with bad tempers have higher physical fitness and potential for explosive growth. So, perhaps the same principle applies to animal strengthening. Chapter 97. The plan was disrupted. Rory forcibly took the experimental materials. After completing an experiment, Rory took off his gloves and goggles and left the laboratory to get some fresh air. Sitting by the fountain in the small square, he took out his cell phone and found that Anthony had sent him a message at some point. When it was opened, there was only a photo of a one-eyed black man. Although the photo was not very clear and the man looked a little sloppy with his beard, Rory recognized his identity at a glance. Nick Fury? He's back at this time? Rory frowned and thought for a moment, then immediately called Anthony. Anthony answered the call quickly and said immediately, "Boss, what are your instructions?" "Find out Nick Fury's current location, what he's been doing, and who he's been in contact with. The sooner the better." "Good boss." After hanging up the phone, Rory sighed softly. He took the initiative to provoke a war between the Avengers and the Skrulls with the aim of destroying the Avengers' remaining strength before Nick Fury returned. The Avengers have only one way to solve problems, and that is violence, but Nick Fury is different. He has too many tricks up his sleeve, and scheming against others is as easy as drinking water. Nick Fury's appearance means that the Skrull crisis is likely to be resolved. Man proposes, God disposes. Rory felt a little helpless. "Damn it, if you want to fight, then fight. As if I'm afraid of you." Rory muttered something casually, and Tina, who was walking over, happened to hear it. "Who are you going to fight?" Tina asked curiously as she sat next to Rory. Rory shrugged. Who else could it be? "The Avengers, of course." He glanced at Tina and asked, "Which side are you on?" "I don't take sides. This is your business, humans. I won't interfere." Tina has witnessed countless civil wars among humans. In her words, the Eternals should not interfere in the historical process of mankind. In Rory's opinion, this was just an excuse for her not to take action. However, Rory didn't force Tina. He just casually reminded her, if a fight really breaks out, just take good care of the lab. If the materials in the lab are destroyed, it will be difficult for you and the elves to produce the inhibitor again. Tina glanced at Rory and replied softly with a saying nothing else. While the two were talking, neither of them noticed that Kathy was standing not far away. Kathy snorted sourly and turned to walk towards the experimental site where Dr. Pym was. Seeing his daughter coming, Scott was happy but also a little worried. "Hey babe, how are you doing?" "It's okay, very fulfilling." Kathy replied indifferently. Noticing that Kathy was not in a good state, Scott immediately asked with concern, "What's wrong?" You seem very unhappy. Kathy shook her head. Of course she would not tell her old father the reason. Hope, who was standing by, saw something was going on. He smiled and pulled Scott aside, then said to Kathy, "We are a family. If you have any troubles, you can tell us at any time." Kathy's expression softened a bit after hearing those heartwarming words, but she still didn't tell the real reason. "Scott, come over here and help." Pim Honk, who was not far away, yelled loudly, and Scott ran over immediately. The quantum channel has been built. If he is given a little more time, more Pim particles can be produced. The only problem now is that the time-space shuttle bracelet cannot be imitated. Although nanotechnology is nothing new, only Tony Stark can apply it to this extent. Kathy came over to help carry the equipment. After she finished, Pim Honk smiled and asked, "Kathy, what have you been busy with recently?" "I'm not busy at all. I just discovered a signal source in the quantum realm. I built a device and am trying to establish a connection with it." Pim Honk felt very surprised. Scott was proud of his daughter, but Janet's face changed drastically when she heard it. Nick Fury's every move is under Rory's surveillance. The Federal Intelligence Agency took a photo of Nick Fury entering the nuclear-contaminated area alone through satellite observation. On Air Force One, Rory and President Ross sat opposite each other, and senior official Seraph came over with the photo and handed it to the president. After looking at it, President Ross handed the photo to Rory and asked doubtfully, "Is Nick Fury really not afraid of death?" Rory chuckled, "This person is not Nick Fury. Even if it is a world-destroying crisis, he will not choose to sacrifice his life." "Are you saying this Nick Fury is a Skrull in disguise?" Rory didn't answer the question. He threw the photo onto the table and said, "Get ready for war. After the Skrull crisis is resolved, what will remain is the feud between Celestial Island and the Avengers. The Federation shouldn't just sit there and watch, especially you, Mr. President." Luo Rui stood up and shook off his clothes, then turned to Seraph and asked, "How long will it take to reach Eastern Europe?" "Sir, we'll be there in 10 minutes. Rory left the presidential lounge and came to the drop bay door of Air Force One. Looking at the parachute handed to him by Seraph, Luo Rui waved his hand casually, "No need." Seraph heard a message from the control room through his earphones. He looked up and said to Luo Rui, "Sir, we're here. Open the door." Seraph hesitated for only a second, then manually opened the hatch of the launch hatch. Clang squeak. The hydraulic transmission device pushed the hatch open, and a gust of wind instantly rushed into the Air Force One's drop bay. Fortunately, the drop bay was a closed space, otherwise Air Force One would definitely lose oxygen at high altitude. Without any hesitation, Luo Rui raised his legs and jumped down, his body falling straight and fast to the ground like a cannonball. While falling rapidly, Rory saw a flash of golden light on the ground and guessed that it was likely that Grevik and Gaia had already fought. Suddenly, the huge chimney building collapsed, and two golden figures with tails of flame flew out of the ruins into the sky, heading towards Luo Rui. Just as Rory was about to greet the two, Gaia, who had turned into a super Skrull, suddenly used Mantis's hypnotic ability to hypnotize Grevik. Having lost his upward momentum, Grevik fell back to the ground, smashing heavily into the concrete floor, creating a deep crater. Boom. Gaia chased after him and landed steadily on the ground, turning into the Hulk's arm, with the golden light of Captain Marvel on his body, and rushed towards Grevik again. Grevik, who had regained consciousness, also used Captain Marvel's ability to rush forward. Just as the two Super Skrulls were about to collide with each other, a figure suddenly fell from the sky and landed right between the two. Boom. The cosmic energy overflowed to form a protective aperture, and the cement floor collapsed in a semicircle. Rory in the pit slowly stood up, and the golden cosmic energy materialized into armor. The light was even brighter than the light on the two Super Skrulls combined. Rory. Grevik recognized the man at a glance. Gaia also stayed where she was, looking at Luo Rui with a wary look. Luo Rui's mouth curled up slightly, and he looked at the two of them and asked, "Is this the Super Skrull?" Luo Rui stood in the middle of the scale. Whichever side he leaned towards would win in the end. Grevik spoke first, "Rory, we can join forces. You help me deal with Gaia, and I help you deal with the Avengers. Together we can rule the Earth." Gaia was a little slow to react. She was shocked and quickly said, "Rory, you are a human. So, you can't provide me with any benefits, right?" Luo Rui asks Yang Gaia with a smile. Gaia felt a chill in her heart, while Grevik opposite her looked ecstatic. To give Gaia no more time to think, Grevik immediately rushed forward and shouted, "Let's kill her together." Gaia was always on guard. The moment Grevik rushed over, the Hulk's arm, empowered by Captain Marvel's energy, knocked Grevik away with one punch. But she didn't press the issue. Instead, she looked at Luo Rui and warned him, "Luo Rui, you'd better not interfere, or I'll be rude to you." Rory's smile faded, Threatening me? After becoming a Super Skrull, it's not only Gravek who is inflated, but Gaia is also overflowing with confidence. Page 82. The Super Skrull, who combines the abilities of all superheroes, is indeed very powerful. He may be a unique existence in front of all the superheroes, and at least has A-level strength. But in front of Rory, she really had nothing to be arrogant about. Super Skrulls possess superhero abilities, not bodies. The physical bodies of these two Super Skrulls are still fragile, because physical strength is not determined by superpowers, but by genetic levels. Super Skrulls can imitate the appearance and abilities of anyone, but cannot imitate high-dimensional genetic sequences. This point must have been taken into consideration by the Celestials when they created the Skrulls. Otherwise, wouldn't they be invincible if they simply imitated the Celestials or the 5 great gods of the universe? Genetic hierarchy is the hierarchy in the food chain, and it is an iron law that can never be changed. Why can Thanos dominate the universe? Because no one can truly harm him. Even if all his soldiers and subordinates are killed and only Thanos is left, he is still invincible in front of low-level genetic creatures. Gaia, whose self-confidence had swelled to the extreme, said coldly, "I am only giving you a piece of advice. Go back to your celestial island. This war belongs only to the Skrulls." Rory sighed. He really had no feelings for these superheroes. They never understood what humility and Loki meant. They only acted condescending as if they were giving alms. This is why Rory disliked the Avengers from the very beginning. As Rory stepped forward, he said, "You need to understand what respect and fear are." Seeing that Rory was so tactless, Gaia, who had not transformed back into the Hulk, punched him back with her arm, but used only a third of her strength, just to teach Rory a lesson. Boom. Huh. Gaia disappeared from the spot in an instant. A building collapsed in the distance, and then Gaia, with a confused look on her face, crawled out of the rubble. Gaia, who had just become a Super Skrull, could not understand the gap in power. She did not even understand the connection between superpowers and raw power. Gaia, who didn't believe in evil, emitted golden light from her body. She used Captain Marvel's ability and the Hulk's arm, preparing to repeat the same trick to give Rory a hard time. When a huge golden shield appeared in an instant. After the loud collision, Rory did not move at all, but Gaia was blown dozens of meters away by the huge force that rebounded back. Chapter 98 Angus, the mad scientist who attempted to surpass God. There is diversity in the energy of the universe. Light, electricity, wind, and gravity are all types of energy, as well as the ray energy that Captain Marvel obtains from the space gem, the power of thunder from Thor, the magic of the wizard, and so on. The effect is the same, both use energy to apply to oneself to gain more powerful power. In addition to usage techniques, these energies are also divided into different levels. The cosmic energy used by Rory comes from the original energy gathered at the beginning of the universe. Even the gods can only use this energy to strengthen themselves through energy interaction. Unless Gaia can use a higher level of equivalent to deal with Rory, she will never be able to break through the cosmic energy shield in Rory's hand. Boom boom. Gravik landed beside Rory with a grin. Looking at Gaia provocatively, he said, "Let me kill him, and then we will go together to deal with the Avengers. Then the Earth will belong to us." The long sword, the embodiment of cosmic energy, plunged into Gravik's heart. Rory said coldly, "You're being a bit noisy. Also, it was you Skrulls who instigated the Avengers to oppose me. You don't really think I would really cooperate with an alien like you, do you? You. Thump. Gravik's eyes rolled back and he fell backwards to the ground. Died. Seeing Gravik being dealt with, Gaia did not feel any joy in her heart, and even felt a little sad. Not for Gravik, but for the Skrulls. One dead subject and one living subject is just right. Rory turned his head to look at Gaia, spread his legs and rushed over in an instant, ready to take Gaia down in one fell swoop. Gaia naturally would not allow Rory to slaughter her, and immediately fought back. After 3 moves, Rory discovered something very interesting. The superpowers imitated by the Super Skrulls were not perfect. They could only imitate through a certain part of the body, not all of it. For example, she can transform into the Hulk's arm, but she cannot transform her entire body into the Hulk. Gaia, who was completely at a disadvantage, wanted to break away from Rory's entanglement. She wanted to fly away with her whole body emitting light, but Rory grabbed her ankle as soon as she took off. Where to run? Then a powerful physical force came from Rory's hand, and Gaia, who was caught, could not control her body at all. Boom. 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 Rory used the same moves Hulk used against Loki on Gaia. The ground around Rory was smashed into cracks and deep pits, and the dizzy Gaia had no power to resist. Well. Gaia's neck felt tight and she was almost losing consciousness when Rory lifted her up from the ground. Why don't you just come back with me obediently? Why do you have to feel pain before you obey? Rory shook his head, picked up Jiaya and turned to get Grevik's body. As soon as he turned around, Rory was stunned. Grevik's body was gone. He looked around and saw that Grevik was running away quickly not far away. Luo Rui carried Jiaya and chased into a factory building that had not collapsed. He found that Grevik did not continue to escape, but was standing next to a machine. Seeing Luo Rui following in, he immediately put the bracelet on his wrist. The moment he saw the bracelet, Luo Rui didn't even care about Jiaya in his hand. With a stern expression, he rushed forward at the maximum speed his body could exert. The cosmic energy sword swept across, splitting the machine behind Grevik in half. The energy sword cut into the ground, leaving a small but deep sword mark. After all, he was still a step too late, and Grevik disappeared from Rory's sight in an instant. 2 super skrulls were experimental materials. Now that one Grevik had escaped, Rory could no longer let Guy run away and immediately took control of her again. It wouldn't be a wasted trip if we caught one. He took Jiaya back to Tianshan Island and threw her directly into a closed laboratory made of adamantium. Not to mention a super skrull, even if she is the god of super skrulls, there is no way she can get out. He returned to the laboratory where Jiaya was imprisoned with the collection equipment. As soon as he entered the door, a gust of wind came from behind Luo Rui's head. Thump! The fist with great force pierced through Rory's body, and Jiaya staggered uncontrollably and rolled to the ground. She turned her head with an expression of disbelief in her eyes. I noticed that Luo Rui's figure gradually disappeared, and then another Luo Rui walked in from outside the door. Forget about your little tricks. Luo Rui sneered contemptuously. Rory squatted down and grabbed Jiaya's arm. Jiaya wanted to resist, but she couldn't shake Rory's strength at all. After taking the blood sample, Luo Rui turned around and left, with no intention of paying any attention to her. Jiaya quickly got up from the ground and asked before Luo Rui closed the door, "Why are you arresting me? What do you want to do?" Luo Rui, who was standing outside the door and about to close it, said, "What I do has nothing to do with you." The door then closed. Rory brought the Super Skrull blood sample to the lab bench, dropped the blood sample onto a glass slide and placed it under a microscope for preliminary observation. Blood sample analysis is roughly divided into several steps: cell observation, DNA helix fragment data reading, and gene data analysis. Cell observation is done to determine the composition of the biological cell nucleus and then weaken the cells using various chemical reagents. Then, the chromosomes are extracted using an instrument, the DNA spiral state data is read, and a DNA fragment is intercepted for genetic data analysis. If the genetic code can be opened, it means that the blood sample has been completely completed. It seems simple, but it is time-consuming and laborious to operate. Chromosomes are easy to extract and DNA fragments are not difficult to intercept, but the difficulty lies in gene analysis. Genetic data is a fixed program in the body. If you want to strengthen it, you have to fundamentally change the original genes, but the prerequisite for changing the original genes is to be able to decipher the genetic code. A specific genetic code may very well take a biological geneticist a lifetime to figure out. Even Rory has only mastered the genetic codes of humans and Eternals so far, and he cracked them by chance. Precisely because it is so difficult, some crazy scientists try to use other methods to obtain enhancement, such as radiation virus and gene fusion enhancement, which are 2 shortcuts to enhancement. The 2 enhancements, radiation virus and gene fusion, are a one-time enhancement at the cost of cutting off all possibilities of evolution. Self-gene enhancement is to accelerate the evolution process and use catalytic means to make the original genes stronger. Luo Rui's own gene replacement project is equivalent to skipping the normal evolutionary process and going directly to the end, so Luo Rui never uses other enhancement methods to strengthen himself. From the perspective of gene sequence level, if other methods are used to obtain enhancement, it is equivalent to polluting Luo Rui's genes. With Grevek gone, the Skrulls, without their leader, fell apart. This indicates that after the officials and the Avengers finish dealing with the Skrulls, the next destination will be Celestial Island. For a period of time afterwards, Rory was either creating super soldiers or enhanced hounds, and occasionally went to Dr. Pym's experimental site to learn about the research progress. Only a very small amount of time can be spared to study the Super Skrull genes. As a race created by the Celestials, the Skrulls also have an anti-theft mark set in their genes. Moreover, the Skrulls are silicon-based life forms, and their gene sequences are completely different from those of humans. Unless there are unexpected circumstances, cracking the Skrulls' genetic code will be impossible in the short term. Page 83. Tianshan Island entered a state of active preparation for war. In addition to biotech soldiers, various arms and weapons were transported from the Federation to Tianshan Island, with ships and transport planes traveling back and forth every day. The Avengers were also not idle. The superheroes ran around, gathering the Asgard Warrior Legion, the Wakanda Tribe Warrior Legion, and the Guardian Mage camp to participate in it. Nick Fury mobilized his connections to lobby the Security Council and officials from various countries, on the one hand to increase basic strength, and on the other hand to put pressure on the federal government led by President Ross. All that's left is to wait for Thor to return with the Guardians of the Galaxy so that we can settle old scores with Rory. Judging from the combat power on paper, the top fighters are Thor in the Avengers and Rory in Celestial Island. The mid-range Avengers include the Hulk and Captain Marvel, and the Celestial Island has Anthony the Deathblade and the Abomination. There are many Avengers superheroes at the grassroots level, and there are also various legions to help support them. There are only more than 100 super soldiers and enhanced hounds on the side of Celestial Island. Fortunately, the federal military is on Rory's side. Looking at it this way, it's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker. Afterwards, Rory, the owner of the Tien Island, and Federal President Ross cooperated with each other. Federal President Ross ordered a comprehensive cleansing of the Skrulls. The Skrulls, without a leader, became stray dogs. Then Rory summoned the Skrull refugees to the Island of the Gods in the name of Gaia, the Super Skrull. Mining in spare time and fighting in busy time can also contribute to the basic combat power of Tien Island. Both sides are busy preparing for war. After this battle, the victorious side will dominate the world. Other countries naturally hope that the Avengers will win, because the Avengers will not interfere too much in official affairs. If the Avengers lose, no one on Earth will be able to check and balance Rory. The Rory dynasty is just around the corner. The shadow of war covered the whole world, the atmosphere was extremely tense, and everyone's eyes were on the Avengers and Celestial Island. But just when the war was about to break out, another event suddenly broke the solemn war atmosphere. Hee. Haha, I did it. I finally did it. Angus, who once served as Rory's temporary assistant at the military base, stood in front of the laboratory table with disheveled hair and a dirty white coat, holding a bottle of medicine in his hand and laughing wildly with his head tilted back. When he was Luo Rui's assistant, he secretly learned some of Luo Rui's unique biological cell activation technology. It's a pity that the technology Angus learned secretly was not complete. He only knew the steps of the serum reverse deduction process, but did not understand the real formula. As a result, by accident, he came up with something else. Through analysis and observation, it was found that the purple potion made by Angus could indeed reactivate cells, but it was only cell activity and did not have the effect of absorbing cosmic energy. Without energy to sustain them, revived cells will quickly wither again. To solve this problem, Angus extracted non-metabolic genes from black coral, which has a lifespan of more than 4,000 years, hoping to maintain activity by stopping cell metabolism. It's not that this method is not feasible, it's just that he is too fanciful. Crazy Angus took the cell activation potion and rushed to the cold storage, where the bodies of 2 enhanced humans were placed. In order to increase the success rate, he decided to use enhanced humans with higher cell strength to conduct the first human trial. Chapter 99 Death is like the wind, walking with destruction. Bang. Inside the military base, the closed door of the underground laboratory was suddenly knocked away. Angus fell on the knocked away iron door with blood coming out of all 7 orifices and his chest collapsed. The mad scientist Angus tilted his head and stopped breathing. After a few seconds of silence, 2 withered bodies crawled out of the laboratory, crawled onto Angus's body little by little, and began to eat Angus flesh and blood in big mouthfuls. Roar. One of the bodies raised its head and roared. The skin tissue had lost its elasticity and tore the corners of its mouth when it opened its mouth to roar, exposing its molars on both sides. The huge mouth could only be hung by a hook. Click. After devouring Angus's flesh and blood, the body limped to its feet, its eye sockets sunken and its face grim, unconsciously looking for its next target. A minute later, another mummy with only one arm also crawled up and staggered behind the leading body. By coincidence, 2 terrifying bodies accidentally entered the elevator and slowly rose as the elevator door closed. The elevator stopped at the first floor, and with a ding sound, the elevator door opened again. A staff member passing by accidentally turned his head and saw 2 crooked bodies in the elevator, one of whom was wearing Captain America's iconic costume. The staff was stunned when they saw it. Captain America? As soon as the voice was uttered, the 2 crooked bodies in the elevator immediately turned their heads and looked over. The staff were frightened by the hideous and terrifying face resembling a skeleton and screamed subconsciously. Thump. Before the scream stopped, she was tackled to the ground by 2 zombies, and red blood spurted out, accompanied by the horrific sounds of tearing and chewing raw flesh. Luo Rui's residence on Tien Island. While Rory was out for dinner, Payne rushed over with a list to report on his work. Boss, the federal military sent 11 close-in weapon systems and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, 467 AIM series air defense missiles and 322 precision strike missiles, as well as various individual weapons and ammunition. This is enough to arm everyone on Tien Island. While picking up some food, Rory asked, "How's the progress at the forging factory?" "The progress is within expectations. The technology in this area is not yet mature. The armor made of adamantium alloy provides adequate protection, but it is a little cumbersome to put on. The super soldier, equipped with adamantium armor and weapons, is absolutely powerful. It may be difficult for him to deal with high-end combat forces, but it is definitely a piece of cake to deal with basic combat forces." Rory nodded after hearing this, put down his chopsticks, and drank the last sip of beer. "Anything else?" "Without." Ding-ling-ling. The rapid ringing of his cell phone suddenly rang out. Payne took out his phone and checked the caller ID. He said, "Boss, it's the Pentagon calling." Rory nodded and motioned him to answer the phone first. Payne listened for a few seconds after the call was connected, then looked at Rory with a shocked expression. "Boss, the New Jersey military base has fallen. Nearby cities like Trenton and Philadelphia also fell 10 minutes ago. An unknown force has split into two groups and is heading towards New York and Washington." Rory was stunned. He didn't believe the news at all, but Payne didn't look like he was joking. "How is it possible? The Federation's homeland fell? Could it be that the Avengers rebelled?" Rory couldn't think of any other force that could do this, but the Avengers were superheroes, not lunatics. Even if they could attack a military base, they would never attack civilians in the city. "Boss, the Pentagon asked us for help, we..." Rory was silent for a moment, then said, "Anthony is still in the Federation. Arrange a team of super soldiers to support him, bringing the adamantium equipment you've crafted. Also, tell Anthony to report back anytime he finds something new." "Okay boss, I'll make arrangements right away." Payne immediately ran out to convey Rory's instructions. Rory was still wondering whether this sudden incident was a diversionary tactic of the Avengers, or whether other forces were taking advantage of the hostility between the Avengers and Celestial Island to cause trouble. Even if the entire Federation fell, Rory would not send all the forces of Tianchen Island to support. "If the Avengers steal my house, I won't even have a place to cry." At the same time that Rory received the news, the lurking Shield and the Avengers also received news of the fall of the federal military base. In the Asgard conference room, Nick Fury looked at the superheroes and asked, "What do you think about this? Tell us. We are superheroes and this is our responsibility. But the Federation labeled us terrorists and traitors to humanity. Just because of the Federation's attitude towards us, should we ignore the crisis? Of course not. What I want to say is what to do with Rory. Tianchen Island is accumulating strength. If we don't act immediately, the consequences will be more serious." As expected, there were differences of opinion. Some people believed that they should return to the federal mainland to resolve the crisis of occupation, while others believed that Rory should be dealt with first. On one side, people are being slaughtered, and on the other side, there is the crisis of the destroyer. It seems that no matter what choice you make, it will be wrong. Just as the superheroes were hesitating, a portal suddenly lit up and Strange walked out. "Everyone, the world-destroying crisis is coming." Bruce Banner, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly stood up and asked, "Dr. Strange, are you saying that this incident is related to Rory?" Strange shook his head. "I don't know, but I sense the power of death from the magical node set up by the three sanctuaries." "What is the power of death?" Strange explained, "The power of death is a kind of energy. Once this energy exceeds a certain critical point, it means that countless lives will die. Only when a sufficient number of lives have died can this power of death be dispelled." Although Strange did not say it explicitly, since he said it was a world-destroying crisis, he probably meant all life on Earth. "What should we do now?" Strange sighed, "We should have gotten rid of Rory earlier, but we missed the best opportunity." Nick Fury then stood up and said firmly, "Thanos' slaughter of half of all life in the universe was horrific enough, but we still won. I believe the outcome will be the same this time. As long as we all work together, we can definitely resolve this crisis." It's not that Nick Fury doesn't believe in Strange, but the superhero cannot lose his fighting spirit at this time, he must boost everyone's morale. Nick Fury took over the command and arranged, "Carol, Banner, you two take all the Avengers members back to the Federation to control the situation. Ms. Valkyrie, please help contact General Okoye of Wakanda and mobilize the army so they are ready to join the battle at any time. Shield is responsible for providing intelligence support and striving to bring the situation under control within an acceptable range in a short period of time." The clueless superheroes immediately took action under the command of Nick Fury. Strange opened the portal to the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies in New York, and all the superheroes lined up to enter. However, the situation is actually more serious than anyone imagined. As soon as the superheroes walked out of the sanctuary, they found that the streets were congested with traffic and the crowd was screaming in panic and running in one direction. Page 84. Fighter planes flew overhead, and rumbling explosions and flames shot into the sky were heard not far from the city. Oh my god, the military is dropping a bomb in the middle of a city. Are they crazy? A group of superheroes went in the opposite direction, and Captain Marvel Carol, who was the fastest, arrived at the explosion scene first. The following scene scared Carol to death. A black wave surged on the city streets, and what made up the black wave was actually human beings themselves. Countless humans gathered together, roaring and rushing in the same direction, biting anyone they saw without any rationality. This was almost the craziest scene Carol had ever seen since she was born. Chug chug chug. Boom. Boom. Heavily armed National Guard troops entered the city and fought the black wave in the streets. However, thermal weapons had almost no effect on the black wave, and the still mad humans who were hit by bullets quickly approached the location of the National Guard. Tank artillery and heavy machine guns could barely hold out, blowing away a group of crazy people, but those behind continued to rush forward. Carol swooped down from the sky to the ground, raised her hand and shot out a wave of energy, like a stone thrown into the water, splashing a layer of waves. After a moment of shock, Carol fired a series of energy waves, temporarily halting the waves coming from all directions. While resisting, she shouted to the National Guard, "Retreat quickly." A team of National Guard soldiers were also frightened. After Carol's reminder, they immediately came to their senses, got in their cars, and ran away. Two jet fighters flew low and dropped two more bombs. Rumble. The flames shot up into the sky, forming a huge air wave, and the shock wave shattered all the glass of the tall buildings on both sides of the street. But the strange thing is that those black waves didn't seem to be affected. Even though they were blown away and had their limbs broken, they still didn't stop moving forward. Oh my god, what the hell is this? The Avengers who arrived later looked at the crazy crowd in horror. The Hulk banner grabbed a black-skinned humanoid creature with bared fangs and a hateful look on its face and threw it out fiercely. He knocked over a street lamp, his body bending under the immense force. Under the gaze of everyone, the completely bent body moved a few times and then staggered to its feet again. Oh my god. Is this still a human? Strange said sternly, "It's the death plague." After saying that, Strange released a rune whip, tied up a mutant human and pulled him closer for a closer look. The mutated human's facial features were bleeding black blood, his mouth was wide open with a ferocious expression, and even though he was tied up tightly, he still stretched his neck and roared, without showing even a trace of rationality. In the eyes of others, this irrational human seemed to be crazy and sick, but in Strange's eyes, this person was wrapped in a layer of light black mist. He raised his only hand and grabbed the man's face in the air, and a thick black line slowly floated out from his pupils. After the power of death was sucked out, the irrational human stopped moving in an instant, as if he was a corpse that had been dead for a long time. I'm begging for a wave of recommendation votes and monthly tickets in the middle of the month, please. Chapter 100. The world-destroying crisis came quietly. In Washington, D.C., a large number of troops formed a steel torrent to block the incoming waves. All weapons were used but with little effect. Anthony led the super soldier team to the front line. The super soldiers wearing adamantium alloy armor formed a human wall. With a wave of their hands and a slash of their swords, the crazy infected people were dismembered in an instant. Suddenly, a figure jumped high, flew over the wall of super soldiers and pounced on the ordinary soldiers. Anthony, who was supervising the battle, took out his adamantium bone knife and stepped forward. Puff. With one slash of the knife, a deep wound was cut on the opponent's chest, but it did not take his life. Winter Soldier? Although Bucky had become hideous, Anthony still recognized him at a glance. Without his vibranium arm, Bucky is extremely ferocious. His dry body seems to be able to burst out with extremely strong power, and he can even fight back and forth with Anthony. "Sir, word has come from the White House that it's time to evacuate." After hearing this, Anthony immediately withdrew from the battle circle, picked up an RPG and fired at Bucky. Bang! Bucky was blown away by the explosion, and when he was about to get up again, Anthony suddenly appeared behind Bucky. Swish! The knife flashed coldly, instantly cutting off Bucky's arms and ankles. "Retreat. Take him away." "Yes, sir." The military retreated while fighting. President Ross of the White House evacuated first on Air Force One, and Anthony followed closely behind on a transport plane. Rory, who was far away on Tianchen Island, had already received the video footage from the Federation. Rory was dumbfounded when he saw the crazy humans in the picture. "Am I not in Marvel? How did I become a doomsday zombie?" The federal capital Washington fell after 32 hours of resistance, and President Ross's whereabouts were unknown. This news shocked the world. Anthony brought Bucky, the Winter Soldier with his hands and feet cut off, back to Celestial Island, and Rory immediately began to study Bucky. The sugar index is 0. Metabolic index is 0. Cell activity. How strange. What was flowing in Bucky's body could no longer be called blood, but a thick black liquid similar to oil. Rory used various instruments to test but failed to find a key to maintaining cell activity. Normally, without energy intake, there can be no energy output, but Bucky can still move, which means he must have an energy source, but the problem is that Rory has not found where Bucky replenishes the energy of this body. Rory took off his gloves and walked outside the laboratory. He asked Payne, who was waiting outside, "Have you contacted Ross?" Payne shook his head. "Air Force One has lost contact, most likely already. Keep looking. Even if Air Force One crashed, Ross must still be alive. Arrange another plane for me and take me to the New Jersey military base." Rory has always believed that the timeline he is in is the sacred timeline, so this cannot be the Marvel zombie universe, and he must find out the reason. "Boss, I'll go with you." Anthony walked over and said. Rory waved his hand, "Go and get ready." Just as Rory was about to go to the New Jersey military base to investigate the cause of the zombie outbreak, the Avengers on the other side also encountered big trouble. Tens of thousands of zombies swarmed into Manhattan. The Avengers had no choice but to destroy all the connecting bridges, temporarily sealing Manhattan into an isolated island. Strange dispatched a large number of Guardian mages to open the portal and transport ordinary people who had not been infected. The busy and tense evacuation work is continuing, and a group of Avengers gather together to discuss the next countermeasures. Suddenly, a red figure appeared above the city holding Spider Silk, and Spider Baby Peter Parker landed steadily in front of everyone. "Hey guys, what the hell is going on? Peter Parker escorted his friends and Aunt May to the resettlement site, and immediately rushed over after learning that the Avengers were there. Dr. Banner said solemnly, "Everyone has seen the infectious power of these monsters. We need to warn the world." Hawkeye Barton, who was fiddling with his phone, looked up and said, "It's useless. Similar situations are happening all over the world now." Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Peter Parker anxiously interrupted and asked, "Hey guys, isn't there an antidote?" Everyone turned to look at the same time. Peter Parker was stared at by everyone and said a little nervously, "I mean, they look like they are sick. Maybe we can find a cure." Then everyone looked at Banner, because among all the people present, Banner was the most knowledgeable. Bruce Banner smiled wryly and said, "I have a PhD in nuclear physics, not biology. Biology is a very broad field, and there are many experts, but if you ask me who is the most authoritative, I do know one." "Who?" "Rory." "Everyone." Banner spread his hands and said, "This is a fact. Currently, no one on Earth dares to say that they can surpass Rory in genetic engineering. His research results are obvious to all. From being an ordinary mortal, Rory strengthened himself through biogenetic engineering to a level comparable to Thanos. Even though they were enemies, one had to admire Rory's knowledge in this area. But what if he is the one who made these things?" Everyone was speechless again. Just when the Avengers were at a loss, a phone call came in. "It's Nick Fury. Let's see what he says first." The call was connected on speakerphone, and Nick Fury's voice came from the other end of the line. "I just received intelligence that Russia used nuclear weapons 3 minutes ago. The launch codes for the federal nuclear arsenal are in the hands of the president, but the president has lost contact. If we can't find a better solution, we must bring President Ross back." Everyone looked at each other in surprise. Spider Baby Peter Parker couldn't control his mouth and blurted out subconsciously, "If a nuclear weapon is launched, won't the Earth be doomed?" Page 85. "If we use it, humanity still has a chance of survival. If we don't, everyone will die. Another damn trolley problem. It will take about 24 hours to evacuate New York City. Carol, go find President Ross. Banner will investigate the cause of the virus. The rest of you will focus on evacuating the people." Nick Fury gave the order and then hung up. Captain Marvel Carol checks the list of refuge bases provided by Nick Fury one by one, looking for Ross, who may become the last president of the Federation. Banner came to the New Jersey military base alone. The century-old New Jersey military base has now turned into ruins, and various aircraft and armored vehicles have turned into a pile of wreckage after burning. The barracks were reduced to a skeleton, and in front of a lonely experimental building, several unconscious zombies in white coats were wandering around. Banner, transformed into the Hulk, jumped 100 meters and landed in front of the laboratory door with a bang, instantly attracting the attention of several zombies, who rushed towards Banner with drooling and roaring. Banner slapped several zombies away with a casual wave of his hand, then walked into the laboratory. Just a few minutes after Bruce Banner entered the laboratory, a military plane slowly landed on the runway of the military base. Anthony took the lead, clearing out the scattered zombies and then followed Rory to the laboratory building. "Boss, someone just passed by here. This can be easily determined from the marks in front of the door." Rory didn't care. The federal capital had fallen. It would be strange if no one came to investigate. Rory, who was familiar with the place, went straight to the elevator, opened the elevator door and jumped in. Anthony commanded 2 super soldiers to guard the door and followed closely with the rest of the people. The underground laboratory of the military base is not small at all, and the place where Rory once worked is only a small part of it. After entering, Rory found that there were no signs of zombies here. He turned around and said, "Anthony, go check the surveillance here. The others will search for clues separately." "Yes, sir." Rory first went to his former laboratory, where there was no change, and then went to the area where another experimental project was located. As soon as he walked through a corridor, Rory found Angus lying on the ground as if he had been eaten by wild dogs. This is the only place in the entire underground laboratory where a corpse was found, which means the problem must have originated from here. Rory had some impression of Angus, but not much. As they walked past Angus's body and into the open door, Rory's eyes met with another pair of eyes. Banner. Rory. Rory didn't expect to meet Bruce Banner in such a place, and Banner also didn't expect to meet Rory. The atmosphere solidified instantly. Banner attacked Rory 3 times, once in the Battle of New York, once in the surprise attack on the military base, and the last time in the encirclement operation in the Arctic Circle of Greenland. All 3 operations ended in failure. Rory glanced at the document in Banner's hand and asked with a smile, "What did you find out?" Banner replied softly, "It was a man named Angus who created this crisis." Angus? The man lying outside the door is Angus. Banner's heart sank. The purpose of his trip this time was to find out who caused the zombie crisis. Maybe there really was an antidote, as Spider Baby said. Now that the person is dead, the antidote issue is out of the question. Then he thought of something, and suddenly looked at Rory with hope and asked, "Rory, you are the best biologist in the world, do you have any idea?" Rory neither nodded nor shook his head. He would not give any response until he was sure. "Help me organize Angus's test data first. I need to understand it before I can make a judgment." It's not that Rory has let go of the matter between him and the Avengers, but he doesn't want to have a conflict here. Although he was confident that he could defeat Banner, the battle between the two would definitely destroy this place. The most urgent task was to first investigate the reason for the appearance of the zombies. Rory and Banner agreed on this tacitly. One wanted to know the truth, the other wanted to save the world, and soon they piled all the information on the laboratory table. "These are all the test data. I'll help you sort them by date. Get rid of them, Rory." Rory said nothing and looked carefully at Angus's experimental notes. May 5th, the trial progress was slow, and President Ross ordered that results be produced within 6 months. On May 5th, I discovered a flaw in cell activation technology. Even if the cells were reactivated, they could not survive due to a lack of metabolism. On June 6th, I found a way to keep cells alive. Since I couldn't metabolize cells, I decided to extend their lifespan. June 6th, black coral can live up to 5 years. If the genes of black coral are integrated into cells, it will be possible to achieve the goal of eliminating the need for metabolism and extending the lifespan of cells. July 7th, I finally succeeded. After reading Angus's notes, Rory couldn't help but curse, "What an idiot." Chapter 101. If it doesn't work, then run away with all of humanity. Rory finally knew why the zombies appeared. Angus uses cell activation technology to stimulate cell regeneration, but the regenerated cells are only active and not physiological. Simply put, the resurrected person only has his body functions alive, while his internal organs and neurons remain dead, so zombies are in a half-dead state between alive and dead. All actions follow the body's most primitive instincts, such as eating and drinking, as well as the innate desire for competition. What a damn lunatic. Rory is quite obsessed with the study of biological genes, but he still follows one principle, which is to conform to the characteristics of biological evolution. He can strengthen and even change the sequence of biological genes, but he will never conduct reverse research. Resurrection is taboo in the biogenetic realm and is pagan. Banner couldn't help but ask, "Dr. Rory, have you found the reason?" Well, Angus is a brainless idiot. He's researching biogenetic resurrection technology. Even though Bruce Banner doesn't understand biological genetics, he understands how incredible resurrection is. If it goes against ethics and the natural evolution of organisms, there will definitely be problems. Anthony came over with the surveillance video and said, "Boss, I've copied the video." When he saw Bruce Banner, Anthony immediately looked wary. Rory waved his hand, put out the surveillance. Banner thought that he might not be a match for Rory, but it would not be so easy for Rory to kill him. Even if he couldn't beat him, he could still escape. He would not regard Anthony as a threat to himself. He bent down to pick up the holographic projection screen, turned it on, and then stretched out his huge green hand to Anthony and made a sweet gesture. Anthony then handed over the USB flash drive containing the surveillance footage. Banner inserted the USB drive and clicked a few times on the holographic screen. The surveillance footage immediately appeared. Rory and Banner stared at the surveillance video, and their faces became extremely ugly after watching it. Bruce Banner's face turned even greener, obviously angry. This guy actually resurrected Steve and Bucky. Luo speculated, the cells of these two people contain super soldier serum. Losing their metabolic function makes them stronger, and they are also somewhat contagious. That's why ordinary people who are infected are so difficult to kill, unless high-powered weapons or high-intensity cold weapons are used. Angus will definitely leave a deep mark in human history by turning 60 billion ordinary people on Earth into half-dead biochemical zombies, and these zombies are super soldiers who are not afraid of life and death. That is, as long as humans still have history. Dr. Rory, can you develop an antidote? Don't flatter me. I still don't know the formula for the potion Angus created. Whether or not an antidote can be developed, and when it can be developed, are all unknowns. It's not that Rory doesn't want to save the world, but that he really isn't sure. Pharmacology has its own characteristics of mutual promotion and mutual restraint. When different chemical agents are combined together, there will be tens of millions of different reactions. The material for making the resurrection potion is A, and the material for making the antidote is most likely B, D, or even H. It is not as simple as just touching your upper lip and lower lip to make it. There may even be no cure at all, just like with cancer. I need to take these experimental materials back for research. I'll talk about it when I get the results. Even if Banner took the information back, he wouldn't be able to figure it out, so he could only hand it over to Rory. On the way back, Rory had 1,000 questions in his mind, but he couldn't figure it out. He didn't understand why a zombie crisis broke out when it was clearly a sacred timeline. There are many versions about the origin of the zombie universe. Some say it was brought back from the quantum realm by the Wasp, some say it was brought back across dimensions by Magneto, and some say it was caused by Mr. Fantastic wanting to destroy the world after his wife and children died. The only version that was not resurrected was Captain America. Back on Tiantian Island, Rory plunged into the laboratory and arranged for Maya Hansen to import all of Angus's experimental data for analysis. The two right-hand men acted separately. Anthony was responsible for bringing all the family members of the Tiantian Island members to the island for refuge, and Payne was responsible for collecting supplies. 48 hours passed in a flash. After working hard for 2 days and 2 nights, Rory finally walked out of the laboratory. At this time, Tiantian Island was more than 10 times more lively than before. There were long queues to register identity information, arrange accommodation, and receive daily necessities. The supervisor Payne was extremely busy. Anthony, who always pays attention to the outside world, came over immediately after learning that Rory had come out. "Boss. What's the situation outside?" Page 86. Rory, who hadn't eaten or slept for 48 hours, was not too tired. He opened a bottle of beer and sat down on a chair on the porch. Anthony reported, "The situation is very bad. Almost all the cities in the eastern part of the Federation have fallen. The same situation has occurred in other areas. Fortunately, we got the news in advance, so we can hold on for a while. If the ammunition is used up." Anthony didn't say what came next. There was only one result when the ammunition was used up, there was no choice. Federation President Ross has not been found yet. He's most likely hiding somewhere. The Avengers have carried out several bombing operations, but with little effect. They're currently organizing the evacuation of the people. Federal President Ross has hidden the identity of Red Hulk from the outside world, so even if he encounters zombies, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. The Avengers have limited manpower and it is difficult to control a tide of hundreds of millions of zombies. If there is no antidote, the Earth may really be doomed. Rory sighed and drank his beer in one gulp. Rory had no idea about the antidote. In 48 hours, he had reversed the entire process of Angus's experiment, but deciphering the formula to restore the antidote was dozens or even hundreds of times more difficult than making a zombie potion. By the time he creates the antidote, how many people will be left alive on Earth? Rory looked at the completed palace from afar. It was magnificent and full of royal aura. The dynasty is right in front of me, but I didn't expect it to be such a world. It can be said that life is full of surprises and accidents. Before Rory could finish his sigh, a portal suddenly lit up in front of Rory. Anthony immediately stretched out his alloy bone knife to block Rory and took a defensive stance. The portal opened fully and 3 men walked out. Doctor Strange, Nick Fury, the F-King, and Bruce Banner, the Hulk. The portal was not closed immediately, perhaps because he was afraid that Rory would suddenly take action, so he left himself a way out. "Stop, you are not welcome here." Anthony raised the alloy bone knife and pointed it at the 3 people as a warning. Strange ignored Anthony and looked past him at Rory, saying, "Rory, we need to talk." Luo smiled and asked, "What are you talking about? How can you imprison me forever, or how can you take my life? You should understand the current situation. I think we should put aside our grudges and work together to resolve the crisis facing humanity. This is the most important thing. The Avengers must have been unable to hold on any longer, otherwise they would never have come to Rory for help." Luo, sitting on the porch, asked curiously, "How do you plan to solve this? If you rely on force, you wouldn't show up here. So, are you here to ask for the antidote?" Good old Bruce Banner took 2 steps forward and said softly, "Dr. Rory, we've gathered many biological experts, but progress hasn't been smooth. Perhaps if we pool all our research resources, we might actually be able to develop an antidote." Luo shook his head helplessly. "I'm sorry, Dr. Banner, I didn't mean to hit you, but researching the antidote is not as simple as you think. From a biological perspective, zombies are a group of mindless beasts. Their bodies are alive, but their neural networks are dead. After Angus added the non-metabolic gene of the black coral, the zombies' lifespan far exceeded that of normal humans, and they could exist for a long time with just a small amount of flesh and blood. If it were ordinary zombies, it might not be a threat to humans, but Angus's experimental subjects were Steve Rogers and Bucky, 2 super soldiers who had been injected with serum. The cell regeneration potion combined with the super serum ultimately produced an unpredictable chemical reaction. The current zombie Captain America is several times stronger than before, and ordinary people bitten by him will immediately become biochemical zombies with physiques comparable to super soldiers. What does it mean to have billions of super soldiers who have no sense of pain and no thoughts? Just thinking about it makes my scalp tingle. Is there anything I can help you with? We can all work together to find a solution." Luo shook his head. "It will take time to find the raw materials to control the zombie virus from countless materials. It will take a very long time. I'm afraid humans can't wait that long." Bruce Banner asked dejectedly, "Is humanity really going to be extinct?" Luo chuckled, "He can do magic, right? Why not let him open a portal to other planets?" Banner's eyes lit up. This was indeed a good solution to the current predicament. It can not only relieve the pressure on the Avengers, but also preserve the seeds of civilization for mankind. Even Strange himself did not expect this. While Banner and Rory were talking, Nick Fury had been observing Rory carefully, hoping to learn more about Rory and some of his weaknesses through this face-to-face contact. Hearing Rory's suggestion to flee Earth, Nick Fury said, "If there is a solution, it would be better to stay on Earth. After all, Earth is the only home for mankind." Nick Fury was testing Rory, but Rory didn't want to pay any attention to him. Although the previous fake Nick Fury was disguised as a Skrull, he had the same face, which made Rory feel uncomfortable. Seeing that Rory didn't respond, in order to avoid embarrassment, Bruce Banner took the initiative to take over the conversation and said, "It would be better to stay on Earth, but before finding a solution, we should first find a way to resettle the civilians." Rory turned his gaze towards Strange and asked with a smile, "Want to talk alone?" Strange had one of his arms cut off by Lowry, and it was a rare opportunity for him to be able to talk to him again. It just so happened that he had a lot of things to say, and when he saw Rory's invitation, Strange nodded in agreement. Then Rory took Strange into the house. Chapter 102 Captain America vs. the Avengers. "Strange, when you brought me back here, did you ever think this day would come?" Rory looked at Strange across the sofa with amusement. Strange said sullenly, "You shouldn't have shown up in the first place." Strange captured information about Rory's future from the Ancient One, but the loss of the Time Stone prevented him from observing the entire process of the future. When he knew that Luo was the destroyer, he made up his mind to get rid of Luo. It's a pity that he found out too late. The strengthened Luo was not someone he could control at will. Luo asked curiously, "You said I was the destroyer. I'm curious about what this title means. Can you explain it to me?" After a moment's silence, Strange said, "A destroyer is an individual who can interfere with the course of time. Even Thanos, who wiped out half of the universe's life, can't be considered a destroyer because he existed in history. But you are different. You have never appeared in time and history, which will cause the future to change. Luo's appearance has changed 3 periods of history, the first is the 70s, the second is the 08s, and the third is the present. The derived timeline branches have all changed to varying degrees. If Strange wants to ensure the integrity of his own timeline, he must erase the traces left by Rory. But is this really the course of history?" Luo expressed his disbelief. He immediately asked, "You only predicted the future outcome, but what I want to say is that it's not my future, it's your future. Is it possible that something you did caused the destruction of the future? For example, bringing me back to this universe?" Strange frowned slightly. "The future is destroyed because of you, Of course I have to stop you. Rory smiled and shrugged, maybe if you hadn't brought me back, or hadn't stopped me, the future wouldn't have been destroyed. It's a paradox, like the chicken and the egg. And what Rory said was right about one thing. What Strange predicted was the future of his own world, not Rory's future. If he hadn't brought Rory back here, that destructive future would not have happened. Then again, if Strange didn't bring Rory back, this universe might not be destroyed, but that might not be the case with Ancient One's universe. At this point, Strange fell silent. There was no point in arguing about the paradox, and many things had already happened. Even if they were right or wrong, they could not change the past and the future. Keeping silent was the best answer. Rory also had no intention of continuing the discussion, but instead asked a question that had been puzzling him for a long time. Strange, I heard that there is a main timeline among countless timelines. I wonder if it is our current one? It used to be, but not now. Strange said briefly but with profound meaning. Rory frowned and asked, you mean, this used to be the main timeline, but later, because of me, a timeline branch appeared? Rory himself is now confused. He doesn't know whether he has returned to the sacred timeline or come to the zombie universe. Yes, there are countless branches on the main timeline. Every time we reach a fork in the road, a new timeline will be created. A choice is one that can have an impact in some way, such as Tony not snapping his fingers, or Strange not bringing Rory back. This indirectly confirms Rory's paradox conjecture just now. The reason why Rory is so persistent in finding the sacred timeline is because all of Marvel's branch timelines will eventually be destroyed. He doesn't want to live a good life and then suddenly the universe explodes. After Strange answered, he also asked the doubts in his heart. Rory, where are you from again? I don't know. I live in a world without superheroes. I woke up in 1970. That time was too backward, so I wanted to go to the more developed modern times to realize my ideal. Rory fooled Strange casually. How could he tell the truth to Strange? Almost everyone in the world knew that Rory was obsessed with biological genetic engineering. In 1970, when technology and equipment were backward, this reason was quite reasonable. Rory and Strange chatted about other things afterwards, ending the conversation half an hour later. Walking out of the house, Rory smiled and waved his hand. Although we had a pleasant chat today, it doesn't mean that the grudge between us is over, so it's better for everyone not to come to Tianshan Island in the future. Dr. Rory, about the antidote, Banner asked again, worried. I'll continue studying it when I have time. After the three of them opened the portal and left, Anthony walked over to Rory and asked worriedly, Boss, is the Earth really doomed? Anthony witnessed the tragic situation in Washington, D.C. at that time. All humans turned into zombie monsters, and the entire city was quickly destroyed in a very short time. Various regions fell one after another, and the human world seemed to be on the brink of destruction. Strange and his two companions returned to Asgard from Celestial Island. After coming out of the portal, Nick Fury was the first to speak. Dr. Strange, can the Master's portal support the large-scale transfer of people? No problem, I can summon more Guardian Mages to come back and help. Now is the early stage of the crisis. Except for some areas that have the ability to barely resist zombies, other backward areas can only wait to be slaughtered. Therefore, the earlier the transfer, the less risk there will be to ordinary people, the fewer zombies will be converted, and the less pressure there will be on the Avengers. After figuring this out, Nick Fury made a quick decision. I will contact the officials of various countries and try to transfer the civilians to one area. Please send a wizard to assist. Strange agreed with this plan and nodded in agreement immediately. Nick Fury continued, the Avengers will rescue the survivors of the North American Commonwealth to the greatest extent possible. Once the people are safely transported, Asgardian and Wakanda warriors, along with elite military units, will form a zombie resistance coalition. Once the zombies are completely wiped out, they will bring the people back to Earth. The plan is simple, but its implementation is difficult. Putting aside whether Nick Fury can convince officials from various countries, gathering the people together is a big problem. Even if the uninfected people can be transferred away, completely eliminating the zombies on the Earth is not a task that can be completed in a short period of time. Nick Fury went to contact officials from various countries, and Strange opened the portal to return to the sanctuary, bringing a group of superheroes back to North America. Page 87. Captain Marvel Carol said politely to Strange, we will gather the safe people. We will have to trouble you to make another trip then. It doesn't matter. A wizard's duty is to protect the Earth. The evacuation operation officially began. Captain Marvel Carol is in a group of her own, flying over the city in search of survivors. Bruce Banner transformed into the Hulk and went straight to the broadcasting company, hoping to find more living people through broadcasting. The others found an enclosed building and set up a defensive position, ready to respond to any survivors. Clint Barton climbed to the roof and looked down at the completely fallen city, feeling a wave of melancholy in his heart. This crisis came so suddenly that it caught everyone off guard. Hawkeye, who had extraordinary eyesight, suddenly noticed a familiar figure standing on the roof of the opposite building. He immediately frowned in alertness and slowly drew the bow and arrow on his back. Steve. He certainly wouldn't mistake Captain America's iconic costume. After learning the cause of the zombie outbreak from Bruce Banner, Clint Barton realized that Steve Rogers had turned into a super zombie, drew his bow and arrow, and reported the situation on the intercom. "Look guys, I see Steve." "Got it, we'll be right there." When Hawkeye Barton saw the zombie Captain America, the zombie Captain America also saw him. "Ho ho ho ho. Roar." The zombie Captain America roared to the sky with his mouth torn, then jumped up from the ground and jumped directly from the tall building across the street. "Are you kidding me?" The height and speed of the zombie Captain America's jump far exceeded the limits of a super soldier, and he swooped down towards Hawkeye Barton's location like a big bird. Hawkeye shot 2 arrows in succession, which hit the zombie Captain America quickly, accurately, and fiercely, one hitting the chest and the other hitting the forehead. The zombies here are completely different from the zombies in the movies. In the movies, you can kill the zombies by shooting them in the head or spine. But every cell in the zombies' bodies is alive. Not to mention destroying their brains, they can still continue to attack even if only one arm is left. Boom. The zombie Captain America came like a cannonball, knocking a hole in the wall of the rooftop of the building where Hawkeye Barton was, and then stood up crookedly. Roar. The ferocious big mouth roared, scaring Patton so much that he turned around and ran away. Hawkeye knew his own strength and that he could not deal with Captain America at all. "FK, he's on our roof, come help. Call for support while running. Zombie Captain America is very fast." Just when he is about to grab Hawkeye from behind, Spider Baby Peter Parker falls from the sky. He raised his hand to catch the hand that the zombie Captain America was grabbing. "Hey, I'm here." "Wow." Before he could finish his sentence, Peter Parker was thrown off the edge of a tall building by the zombie Captain America. Peter Parker immediately shot out Spider Silk to get back to the rooftop and exclaimed, "What a great strength. Steve has become much stronger after becoming a zombie, everyone be careful." Iron Fist, Danny Rand, Jessica Jones, Red Guardian, and Taskmaster, the 4 of them rushed to the rooftop at the first moment and immediately surrounded the zombie Captain America. No one would have thought that one day they would fight with the dead Captain America. Roar. Zombie Captain America roared and rushed towards the nearest Red Guard Alexei. Alexei took a defensive stance and immediately stretched out his hands when the zombie Captain America rushed close to him, trying to restrain the zombie Captain America through wrestling and create space for others. But he underestimated the strength of the zombie Captain America. As soon as he stretched out his hands, they were grabbed by the zombie Captain America. Click. Ouch. My hand. The round shield flew towards him rapidly with the sound of breaking through the air. The zombie Captain America turned around and raised his hand, firmly grasping the shield in his hand. What's shocking is that the zombie Captain America actually put the shield on his arm. A group of superheroes. "Everyone, come on." Iron Fist Danny Rand launched a big move, and his glowing fist took the lead in the attack. Dang. The shield threw an energy punch, and the zombie Captain America grabbed it with a claw. Danny Rand's clothes on his chest were instantly torn into strips, almost ripping him apart. The shield was swung back, sending Jessica Jones, who was rushing towards her, flying away. All the people combined are no match for the zombie Captain America. Only Spider-Man Peter Parker can fight with the zombie Captain America. Unfortunately, Spider-Man Peter Parker has no offensive means, and can hardly hurt the zombie Captain America with his fists and kicks alone. Chapter 103, The Avengers Tragedy, Part. Hawkeye Barton shot an explosive arrow, and after a boom sound, it blew off a piece of dead skin on the zombie Captain America's body. The zombie Captain America used his shield to knock Spider-Man away, then swung the shield out with his backhand, knocking the Red Guard Alexei to the ground. The shield fell back into the hands of zombie Captain America. Jessica Jones wanted to step forward to grab the shield, but was kicked away by the zombie Captain America. He then tore the Master of Taskmaster's suit with a claw, and bright red blood slowly flowed out from the torn part. "Hold on, I'm coming." Captain Marvel Carol's voice sounded in the headset, and a golden light streaked across the distant sky, quickly flying towards the rooftop where everyone was. At this moment, a winged figure flew from another direction, hugged Captain Marvel Carol, opened his bloody mouth, as if wanting to eat Carol alive. "Go away." The flight direction deviated and Carol crashed into the building with another person hanging on her body. Spider Baby Peter Parker rubbed his eyes and said, "Am I seeing right? It's Falcon Sam." "It's Falcon's equipment, sure, but I don't know if it's Sam's." "Now is not the time to chat, there is a very difficult zombie Captain America waiting for them on the roof." Bang. Captain Marvel, her whole body glowing with golden light, crashed through the building and flew high into the sky again. The zombies wearing Falcon equipment were still clinging to her. Boom. War Machine suddenly appeared and blasted the Falcon off Captain Marvel with a shot. Then he increased the power of the power transmitter under his feet and headed straight for the rooftop where the melee was taking place. When it was about to approach the ground, War Machine adjusted its angle and, under the influence of the weight of the armor and the inertia of flight, kicked the zombie Captain America in the chest. With a clang, the War Machine landed steadily on the rooftop. The zombie Captain America was kicked away and broke through the rooftop protective wall and fell down instantly. Wow, I'm so glad you're still alive. The helmet opened with a click, and James Rhodes greeted everyone with a smile. Hi everyone, long time no see. James Rhodes was captured by the Skrulls long ago until Ant-Man and Spider-Man rescued him. Before the zombie crisis broke out, James Rhodes had been recuperating. After the crisis broke out, he immediately retrieved the damaged War Machine, and it was not until today that the repairs were completed. Hey brother, welcome back. Hawkeye Barton walked up and gave him a hug. Then everyone came forward to welcome War Machine's return. The Imitation Master also came over. Although James Rhodes had never seen the Imitation Master before, he still opened his arms warmly to welcome him for a hug. Who would have thought that the next second, the Imitation Master who walked in front of James Rhodes actually tore off his mask, revealing a hideous and terrifying face. Huh. He opened his mouth wide and bit James Rhodes' almost fleshless face hard. Hiss. A large piece of black flesh was bitten off by the imitator Antonia. Oh my god. Rod. Just when fighting with the zombie Captain America, the Imitation Master Antonia was accidentally scratched and all the cells in her body were immediately infected by the zombie virus. War Machine Rhodes made a brilliant debut but ended tragically. The Master of Imitation wanted to continue attacking others, but Spider-Man Peter Parker reacted very quickly and immediately used a web shooter to wrap the Master of Imitation into a cocoon. What the hell is going on? Page 88. Snap. Snap. Before everyone could calm down, a sound suddenly came from the place where the zombie Captain America fell from the tall building. Turning around, I saw the zombie Captain America's skull slowly rising. The zombie Captain America didn't fall completely, he grabbed the wall and climbed back up. However, the bad news did not end there. The zombie imitator tore through the spider web, and War Machine Rhodes, who was missing a face, stood up crookedly. Zombie Rhodes even tried to control the War Machine. Retreat. Retreat. Hawkeye Barton made a prompt decision and immediately called on everyone to retreat. One zombie Captain America is difficult enough to deal with, and with the addition of the zombie Taskmaster and the zombie War Machine, this battle is simply impossible to win. The civilian evacuation plan is progressing steadily. The planet where Thanos retired was originally prepared for the Skrulls, but now it has become a refuge for humans. With the help of the Guardian Mage, portals lit up from all over the world. In addition to civilians, there were also various necessary daily necessities and land reclamation machines. With the help of modern machinery, I believe that humans who go there will be able to gain a foothold quickly. The only bad news is that Hawkeye and others have lost contact, and currently the only one who can be contacted is Bruce Banner. We estimate that 50% of the evacuation progress can be completed within a month. However, since it's difficult to gather people in some remote areas, we'll have to ask the mages to make more trips. Maria Hill reported on the recent work progress. Nick Fury nodded with a dark face, try to speed up. Without the help of the Avengers, those zombies will soon break through the defense line. Asgardian warriors have already gone to support them, and Wakanda has also sent tribal warriors and technological airships. I believe they can hold out for a while longer. According to data from SHIELD, the world will be completely destroyed in about half a month. Except for a few isolated islands and the North and South Poles, the safest places left are Celestial Island and Wakanda. Even the small town of Asgard will no longer be safe. Buzz. Suddenly, the sound of fighter jet engines was heard over the Asgard town square. Nick Fury and Maria Hill walked out of the house and looked up to see a space fighter slowly descending. After the hatch was depressurized and opened, Thor walked out with an excited look on his face, followed by a group of Guardians of the Galaxy. Thor looked around but didn't see Valkyrie and the other Avengers. He walked up to Nick Fury and asked curiously, "Where is everyone?" Nick Fury sighed and said, "Let's go inside and talk." Turning back into the house, Nick Fury introduced the current situation of the Earth. Thor was shocked. The Earth was about to be destroyed just after he left? Star-Lord is sad because Earth is his first home. The other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't feel anything. There were many destroyed planets in the universe, and they were already accustomed to it. We need to do something now. Thor thought he should do something. This was what Nick Fury was waiting for, and he immediately replied, "If possible, I hope you can help find the other Avengers." "No problem, I'll leave right away." Thor picked up the Stormbreaker and started walking. Star-Lord also stood up and said, "Let's go help too." When several people appeared over Manhattan, New York in a spaceship, all they saw was ruins. Buildings collapsed, the ground sank, and the streets were littered with cracks and broken limbs. The once prosperous metropolis seems to be covered with a layer of gray, losing its former colorfulness and filled with a sense of depression. The spacecraft slowly descended, and the air waves from its engines blew dust and garbage into the alley. When the spacecraft's engines were turned off, the entire street became eerily quiet. A huge battle just happened here. Only Banner and Carol have the ability to do this. Thor, carrying Stormbreaker, observed the battlefield and gave his conclusion. Rocket the Raccoon asked aloud, "What about the enemy? Who are their enemies?" To be able to have such destructive power, their enemies must be very formidable. Perhaps we will soon find out who the enemy is. Thor walked forward along the traces of the battle, and the others followed behind him, and soon they passed through the lower and middle towns. Just as we were about to enter the upper city, we suddenly heard the sound of fierce fighting ahead. Thor turned around and warned, "Be careful, I'll go check out the situation first." After that, he swung Stormbreaker into the air and soon arrived near Central Park. Bang! Large tracts of trees in Central Park were blown away, and in a deep pit, the Hulk Bruce Banner was fighting with a group of people. Thor immediately flew down with Stormbreaker and knocked a man who was attacking Hulk Banner away. Banner. Thor. Good brothers meet, but there is no chance to exchange greetings. Hulk Banner grabbed the zombie Red Guard and threw it hard at the zombie war machine in mid-air. When Thor saw the people attacking Banner, he thought he was hallucinating because they were all members of the Avengers. "Banner, what's going on with everyone?" The web launcher shot out a web bullet, suddenly sealing Thor's mouth. The zombie Spider-Man jumped over and opened his mouth to bite directly at Thor's neck. Card. Thor subconsciously raised Stormbreaker, and the zombie Spider-Man bit the edge of Stormbreaker hard, instantly breaking 2 of his teeth off. They have turned into zombies and completely lost their minds. We must leave here immediately. With the Hulk's ability, he should be able to leave at any time. Thor was about to ask, but the next second he knew the reason why Banner couldn't leave. Whoosh! A golden light fell from the sky, and Captain Marvel Carol punched Bruce Banner in the face, followed by several consecutive energy bombs to suppress the Hulk Banner. Seeing this, Thor immediately stepped forward to help and chopped Captain Marvel Carol in half with an axe. Only then did he discover that Carol had also turned into a zombie. Damn it, how did she become like this? It was the second-generation Falcon who attacked Carol, and that's what happened now. The dusty Hulk Banner climbed out of the mud pit, brushed off the dirt on his face and said, "The zombie army and superhero zombies are already troublesome enough, and now even Carol has turned into a zombie and can use superpowers. It's simply not possible to survive." Zombie Carol, covered in deathly aura and golden light, slowly floated into the air. The zombie Captain America holding a shield threw it away, and the zombie Hawkeye holding a bow shot the arrow at Bruce Banner. Zombie War Machine and zombie Spider-Man attacked from 2 directions at the same time. Zombie Iron Fist, zombie Jessica Jones, zombie Red Guard, and zombie Taskmaster attacked again from the ground. Just as the Guardians of the Galaxy arrived and the battle was about to break out, suddenly a purple crack appeared out of thin air between the 2 sides. A pair of hands emerged from the crack and slowly opened it. "It's Wanda." Banner showed a surprised expression, and the next second Scarlet Witch Wanda came out from the crack. Chapter 104, The Avengers Tragedy, Part. Wanda lost her sense of time and space after entering the other dimension. He tried countless ways but couldn't return to the real world. He hated Doctor Strange in his heart and vowed to teach Strange a lesson when he returned. And that guy named Rory. I had no sense of time or space, and I had no idea how much time had passed. Just as the power of death enveloped the Earth and weakened the protective magic barrier set up by the Guardian Wizard, Wanda finally sensed the existence of the Earth. After using all his strength, he finally tore a hole open. As soon as she came out of the dimensional space, Wanda found the Avengers confronting each other. Confused, he asked, "Can anyone tell me about the current situation?" The zombie Captain Marvel fired an energy wave at him, and Banner quickly shouted, "Wanda, be careful." Wanda subconsciously released magic to resist Captain Marvel's attack. The war between the Avengers and the zombie Avengers started instantly. The Hulk punched the Red Guard away, grabbed the Iron Fist that was about to bite Wanda and threw it at the zombie Captain America. The zombie Iron Fist was blocked by the zombie Captain America's shield and continued to rush towards the side. Drax the Destroyer fights against the zombie Jessica Jones, while Nebula fights against the zombie imitation master Antonia alone. Mantis hit here and there, dodging the arrows shot by the zombie Hawkeye. Thor wields Stormbreaker and attacks the zombie Captain Marvel Carol. The still confused Scarlet Witch Wanda did not kill him, but used magic to control the zombie Spider-Man and threw him into the lake in the distance. What on earth is going on? How did they become like this? Wanda asked Banner while using magic. Banner took advantage of the free time to counterattack and replied, "It's a virus. They've all turned into zombies. They've completely lost their minds." Ah. Wanda felt that she had only been away for a short time, but the world had changed so much that it was a little hard to accept for a while. Banner raised his hand to block the shield thrown by the zombie Captain America and shouted, "It was a mad scientist who resurrected Steve into his current form. The virus is contagious. If you are bitten or scratched, you will turn into a zombie. Wanda, you must be careful. Superheroes still retain their abilities when they become zombies. It would be terrible if Wanda also became a zombie." Puff. Thor chopped the zombie Iron Fist Danny Rand in half with one axe, and black sticky liquid flowed all over the ground. Then he swung his battle axe with his backhand and knocked the zombie Spider-Man who had just jumped out of the lake back into the lake. He shouted, "Is there any way to get them back?" Page 89. There is currently no antidote. Nick Fury is organizing the evacuation of ordinary people to other planets. If no solution is found, the Earth will be completely finished. Ha! Wanda, who already understood the situation, no longer held back and used all her strength to control the zombie Hawkeye who was chasing Mantis. "Clint, I'm sorry." Sadness appeared in Wanda's eyes. She controlled the magic with both hands and pulled hard to both sides. Hawkeye Barton, who was controlled in mid-air, was instantly torn into two halves. How could it turn out like this? Wanda's eyes instantly welled up with tears after killing her old friend with her own hands. "I remember when I first met Hawkeye during the War of Ultron, and we worked together to solve the Sokovia crisis. It was also Clint who helped her during the Civil War crisis, and then in the final battle. She had fought side by side with Clint Barton for many years, but she never expected this to be the outcome." Scarlet Witch. Wanda's emotions infected Hulk, Banner and Thor, and the air was filled with sadness. But the battle continued, and everyone could only barely suppress their sadness and continue fighting against their former comrades. "Ah! Save me!" Mantis was suddenly lifted into the air by the zombie war machine. While she was struggling desperately, James Rhodes, who had half of his face missing, bit her on the neck. Groot the Tree Man released vines and pulled the war machine down from the air. Drax the Destroyer roared and rushed forward, stabbing his two knives into the eye sockets of the zombie James Rhodes. The destruction of James Rhodes' brain did not kill him immediately. He actually activated the war machine's self-program. With a loud bang, Drax the Destroyer was blown directly into the air and then shot down by the flying Captain Marvel. Mantis was killed, followed by Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord. One was scratched by the zombie Red Guard, and the other had a piece of flesh bitten off by the zombie Spider-Man. It wouldn't be long before they both turned into zombies. The Guardians of the Galaxy suffered casualties one after another, and Thor became furious. He jumped high and chopped Captain Marvel down from the air with an axe. "Wanda! Control her!" Wanda's magic immediately controlled Captain Marvel in place, and the landed Thor raised his battle axe and hit Captain Marvel hard on the forehead. Boom! Captain Marvel was split in half. The hands of the Tree Man Groot turned into vines and pierced the chest of the zombie Red Guard. Unexpectedly, the zombie virus actually invaded through Groot's branches. Groot immediately cut off his own hands to prevent the zombie virus from spreading throughout his body. Nebula was hugged by the zombie Mimicry Master at this time. Seeing that the zombie Mimicry Master's teeth were about to bite Nebula, Scarlet Witch released magic in time and blew the Mimicry Master away. Drax the Destroyer thrust his two blades into Taskmaster's back, lifted him up high, and threw him towards Thor. Thor swung his Stormbreaker and killed another one. The Avengers died one after another in front of him. The Hulk Banner was completely furious. With a ferocious expression, he lifted Jessica Jones above his head and pulled her into two pieces. The only remaining zombie Captain America didn't rush forward, he actually ran away. The battle is coming to an end, but it has not stopped yet. Mantis, Star-Lord, and Rocket turned into zombies. He had just died, but he was killed again. This was a very serious blow to the hearts of the living. After the battle, no one spoke. They just silently dug several deep pits in Central Park and buried everyone in them. The Avengers, who even Thanos couldn't destroy, were almost wiped out by an ordinary person like Angus. I have to say, this is really ironic. After burying their former comrades, the few survivors returned to the spaceship and left the ruined city. Bringing the news of the Avengers' casualties back to Asgard once again cast a shadow over the world. When Strange rushed over after learning that Wanda had returned to the real world, Wanda was talking to others about what happened after she disappeared. When enemies meet, their eyes are filled with jealousy. Feeling the magical fluctuations from Wanda, Strange hurriedly said, "Wanda, listen to my explanation." "Forget it. I'm going to see Rory now. I'll settle the score with you for dragging me into this dimensional space when I come back." Wanda stood up and walked around Strange. He walked out of the cabin, waved his hands, and flew away with magic. Tianshan Island is currently safe, and Maya Hansen is trying to crack the cure for the zombie virus, but Rory has no hope. Fortunately, Luo Rui brought the Ant-Man family to the Celestial Island in advance. If the Ant-Man and the Wasp also turned into zombies, he took off his rubber gloves and white coat, glanced at Maya Hansen who was busy, and asked casually, "Any progress?" Maya Hansen turned her eyes away from the microscope and shook her head. "No, zombie blood is very strange. It's probably not blood anymore. It's more like a nutrient solution that stimulates cells." Rory already knew about this problem on the day Anthony brought Bucky back. Blood plays a wide range of roles in the human body, including transporting qi and nutrition, completing metabolism, adjusting acid-base balance and body temperature, etc. The black blood of zombies does not have these functions. Its only function is to transmit viruses and provide energy support for body cells. Moreover, after coming into contact with human blood, it will quickly assimilate other people's blood into the same virus, thereby achieving a strong infectious effect. There are theoretically two feasible options for treating this virus. The first is to find the raw materials that can synthesize the virus, and then use Angus's synthesis formula to make the antidote serum. The second is to obtain the reality gem and directly modify the virus components. Compared with the first method of making antidote serum through experiments, the second method is simpler and easier, provided that one can break through the planes and cross the parallel universe. The only ones who can do this are Strange and Wanda. Strange broke one of his arms and could not accurately locate time and space, so Wanda was trapped in the dimensional space. So Rory finally concluded that the Earth is doomed. If Maya Hansen likes research, let her go. Maybe she will attract the attention of the goddess of luck, and by chance she may really create an antidote serum. Rory walked out of the lab and was about to go visit Kathy. A riot suddenly broke out in the small square, attracting Luo Rui's attention. What's going on? Someone still dares to come to Tianshan Island to cause trouble at this time? Luo Rui walked towards the small square, and the crowd involuntarily made way for the island owner Luo Rui. Send Rory out to see me. Wanda, this is not a place for you to act wild, let her go. Walking through the crowd, Rory saw Wanda confronting Anthony in the small square. He was shocked. Just when he thought of Wanda, she appeared on the island of gods. She was really not resistant to his nagging. Wanda used magic to hold an islander hostage. Anthony took out his alloy bone knife and surrounded Wanda with super soldiers as guards. Wanda, let him go. Seeing Rory appear, Wanda put away her magic and released the hostage, staring at Rory with sharp eyes. Luo Rui waved his hand to signal everyone to disperse. Come with me. Luo Rui took Wanda back to the residence, opened 2 bottles of beer and handed one to Wanda, saying, "When did you come back?" Wanda didn't take the beer that Luo Rui handed her. She said coldly, "It has nothing to do with you. I came here just to ask you a question. You want to ask me about what I promised you then?" When Rory was first brought back to this universe by Strange, he started a big battle in New York. If it weren't for Wanda, Rory might have been thrown into the dimensional space by Strange. The reason why Wanda turned against Rory was because Rory promised Wanda that he would take her to find Vision and their future child. Now that the creditors have come to his door, Luo Rui naturally can't pretend that nothing happened. Chapter 105 A sudden inspiration during a date. Rory sat in the cigar chair with a beer in his hand. He calmly said to Wanda who was sitting in front of him, "You should have heard where I came from." Wanda nodded without saying a word. Rory continued, "I was brought back by Strange from another universe. The current time node in that universe is 08. The Battle of New York has not yet begun, and Vision has not yet appeared. If you can return to that universe with me, you will naturally be able to see Vision again. What about me in the other world? Every universe has another self, but Rory is special. There is only one Rory in countless timelines. Perhaps this is why he can become the Destroyer. According to Rory, if the Vision in that universe can appear normally, then Scarlet Witch Wanda can too. It doesn't make sense that there are 2 Wandas living in the same universe." Luo Rui said lightly, "Wouldn't it be better to give her an ordinary life? Or just send Wanda to another universe? Isn't that simple?" Wanda always felt weird talking to someone about how to deal with another self. Moreover, Rory's proposal was so tempting to her that Wanda found it difficult to refuse. Then Wanda thought of another thing and asked, "How do you guarantee that Thanos will not hurt Vision again?" Luo Rui raised his head and laughed, "You already know the future of history, are you still afraid of Thanos?" Wanda thought about it and realized that this was indeed the case. Rory discovered something very interesting: the stronger these superheroes are, the crazier their brains are. "Okay, tell me about your plan." Wanda had already agreed with Rory's proposal, and the next step was to implement the plan. Luo Rui put the beer aside and said, "There are 2 sacred books in the wizard world, One is the Book of Vishanti and the other is the Dark Book. If you want to travel through the universe, you must first obtain the Dark Book. Wanda was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then asked, "You mean to let me learn the magic of traveling through the universe? And then take you with me?" Rory shrugged. "You definitely can't handle it on your own. One more helper means more strength. Cooperation is a win-win situation. Where is the Dark Book?" "I don't know, but I know who knows." After seeing Wanda off, Rory was in better mood than ever. Coming to Kathy's independent laboratory, Kathy was fiddling with a small electrical component. Seeing Rory coming to see her, Kathy immediately put on a happy smile on her face. Page 90. "Why didn't you go to the lab today? I haven't seen you for a few days." "I came here today to see what you are busy with." Rory picked up an electrical unit and Kathy explained, "This is a signal transmitter that can receive signals from the microscopic world." Rory only has some basic knowledge of physical science and almost no advanced knowledge. "I heard that a woman came to see you just now. It seems that you are very popular with women." Kathy raised her eyebrows and glanced at Rory. Rory chuckled and said without explaining, "I'm not interested in other women." "Oh. Then who are you interested in?" Kathy pretended not to know and continued to debug the instrument in her hand with a screwdriver. After not hearing Rory's answer for a long time, Kathy turned her head in confusion and found that Rory was staring at her with fiery eyes. Kathy immediately turned her head away and pretended not to see anything. "Ahem, I heard it's very chaotic outside right now." Kathy was still young before the extinction, and after the extinction, Kathy lost her family and had no mood to fall in love. After the final battle, her family members all came back, and she just wanted to be with them and make up for the lost companionship. Moreover, with her old father watching over her, she had no chance to fall in love. Then Kathy, who had no experience in love, came to Tianshan Island. Rory can be said to be the friend of a different surname with whom she has had the longest one-on-one contact. Attracted by their looks and knowledge, Kathy's affection for Rory is definitely not a little bit. "I'm just too embarrassed to speak up." Rory smiled slightly and extended an invitation. "A shipload of fresh ingredients just arrived today. How about coming to my place for dinner tonight?" "Okay. I want to say hello to Dad and Hope." This was just Kathy's excuse. If she really told her family, Scott would definitely be the first to stand up and object, so she would never tell her family. Rory pretended not to understand and said, "Okay, finish your work here as soon as possible. I'll go back and prepare the food now." "Well, I have a little work left. I'm almost done." At dusk, the setting sun draws a long wave on the sea. The afterglow sprinkled on Tianshan Island, and from the road surface to the magnificent palace, the whole world was adjusted to warm colors. Some people like to go out at this time, sit on a small chair and enjoy the last sunshine. Have a beer and some pickled meat and veggies. After a busy day, the Ant-Man family returned to their residence, and Hope and Janet prepared dinner together. Dr. Pym, wearing glasses, sat on the sofa and continued to look at the documents in his hands. Only Scott walked around the living room distractedly. "Scott, can you please sit still for a while? You're making me dizzy." Dr. Pym took off his glasses and rubbed his brow. "No, I can't sit down. Kathy comes home at this time every day to have dinner with us, but she didn't today. She's late. Kathy has grown up. You care too much about her," Hope said with a smile while stirring Sarah in the kitchen. Scott couldn't hear it at all. He put his hands on his waist and shook his head, saying, "I know she's an adult, and I know she should have a relationship, but I absolutely won't allow her to be friends with that kind of guy." Dr. Pym chuckled. "I advise you to keep your voice down. If the patrol hears you, they'll definitely rush in and give you a good kick in the ass." Rory is not a tyrant. He doesn't even care about the management of Tianshan Island, but this does not prevent his subordinates from worshipping him like a tyrant. Excessive loyalty is fanaticism, and Rory obviously hasn't realized this yet. Across the small square not far from Ant's house, you can see Rory busy in the kitchen through the window. Kathy, who was walking from a distance, adjusted her hair and coat, rubbed her face and walked over slowly. "Hey Rory, what are you having for dinner tonight?" Kathy called out through the window from the porch. The last dish in Rory's hand was just out of the pot. He wiped his hands with a towel and said with a smile, "Come in, everything is what you like, just wash your hands and we can have dinner." Just as Rory and Kathy were enjoying dinner, Maya Hansen suddenly rushed in. "Dr. Rory, I found a way to suppress the virus." Maya Hansen placed a report in front of Rory and said, "The virus is transmitted through contact. This type of infectious agent is a filovirus. In fact, the virus does not exist in the zombie's blood, but in the epidermal cells." As they were talking, Maya Hansen was suddenly attracted by the food on the table. Without asking, she picked up the food and started eating. While eating, he continued, as long as we understand the form of the virus, we can develop specific blocking drugs based on its transmissibility. The function of blocking drugs is to prevent infection and cannot treat already infected zombies. In Luo Rui's opinion, the effect of blocking drugs is not very great. Ordinary people will die if attacked by zombies after taking blocking drugs. People who are not afraid of zombies also do not need blocking drugs. Rory closed the document and returned it to Maya Hansen, saying, Dr. Maya, gamma rays can prevent the virus from invading. Bruce Banner won't turn into a zombie after being bitten. Do you want to turn all the survivors in the world into the Hulk? Is that so? Maya Hansen's excited heart immediately calmed down after hearing this. Luo Rui nodded. What the world needs is an antidote serum that can eliminate the zombie virus, not some blocking drug. Perhaps you can work on this aspect. Oh okay, I'll go back and think about it. Maya Hansen stood up and left. When she reached the door, she suddenly turned around and said, It tastes good, and Kathy is beautiful too. This sentence made Kathy blush. Luo Rui was speechless and said, It's incomprehensible. Don't worry about her. Let's eat ours. While eating, Luo Rui suddenly stopped. Kathy asked curiously, What's wrong? Did you think of something? Luo Rui nodded. It seems that it is really possible to develop an antidote serum. Filoviruses are characterized by their extremely high infectivity, easy infection, close contact, and cross-organism transmission. The most typical example is the Ebola virus, which has a complex structure and is extremely difficult to cure. To put it another way, almost all strengthening serums are a type of virus that invades human cell genes and violently rewrites genetic programs, thereby achieving the strengthening effect. The gene resuscitation potion developed by Angus can also be classified as a strengthening serum, but he strengthens the dead instead of the living. Once this is understood, the research on detoxifying serum has a direction. After dinner, Rory originally planned to keep Kathy at home to watch a movie and chat about life, but the appearance of Maya Hansen completely disrupted their date. Kathy, who was considerate, took the initiative to say, Rory, do you mind if I go to the lab with you? Of course not. After cleaning up the dishes, Kathy did not go home, but went to the laboratory with Rory. Luo Rui's laboratory is definitely the best laboratory in the world, with a full range of equipment, and the reagents and raw materials such as blood samples and serum are also unique in the world. After arriving at the laboratory, Luo Rui immediately started the experiment. Kathy was teasing the little white mouse on the side, occasionally glancing at Rory who was busy with the experiment. On the other hand, Wanda immediately found Strange after returning to seek the origin of the Darkhold, but was naturally rejected. Strange himself doesn't even dare to use it, so how could he possibly give the sacred book to Wanda? Strange explained, Wanda, the Darkhold is truly dangerous, you should know that. I don't know. I only know that you threw me into the dimensional space and almost killed me. If you are sorry for what you did, give me the Dark Book and don't force me to do it. Strange with two hands is no match for Wanda, and it is even more impossible for him to beat Wanda with one hand. Strange raised a hand to signal Wanda to calm down, and at the same time persuaded, Wanda, I hope you can calm down. Our top priority now is to protect the Earth and deal with those zombies, not to fight among ourselves. Wanda refused to give in. I'm calm now. I just want the divine book. Give it to me and I'll help you save the world. It's that simple. Chapter 106 Saving the world isn't it easy? Strange now has two choices. One is to tell Wanda the origin of the Darkhold, and then everyone works together to save the world. The second is to fight with Wanda, with the probability of winning almost zero. After losing, tell Wanda the Darkhold. Neither of these two options was acceptable to Strange. Headache asked, Wanda, why do you want the Dark Book? Wanda swallowed back the words that were about to come out of her mouth and shook her head, it's none of your business. Strange pondered for a long time, and just when Wanda was getting impatient, he said, I can tell you about the origin of the Darkhold, but only if we resolve this global zombie crisis first. Of course, Strange is not that easy to talk to. If it were someone else, they could say whatever they wanted, but for Wanda, he would delay it for as long as possible. An agreement was reached and Wanda officially joined the crisis response team. Follow the elite troops to the front line to stop the advance of the zombie tide and buy more time for the evacuation of civilians in the rear. At the same time, Luo Rui was working on solving the problem of pathogen analysis of the zombie virus. Luo Rui has extracted the filamentous virus. The next step is to remove the membrane, peel off the outer shell of the pathogen, and then obtain the core code of the pathogen. If you want to eliminate the virus, you must first find the chemical elements that can inhibit the virus. There is no shortcut for this step, you can only try each type one by one. Kathy also put down her own research experiments and came to help, labeling various chemical elements and then giving them to Rory and Maya Hansen for trial experiments. The reagent test lasted for a full week, but still no element that could restrain the zombie virus was found. Maya Hansen and Kathy lay exhausted on the sofa and fell asleep, while Rory sat in front of the computer, lost in thought. Almost all known ingredients have been tried, and none of them can react with the zombie virus. Am I wrong? Rory pinched his chin and shook his head. No, the potion Angus made was not a zombie virus, but the potion caused another chemical reaction in Steve Rogers' body. Rory slapped his thigh hard and said in shock, "This is not a traditional zombie virus at all. I've been misled. From a biological perspective, zombies are a type of deformed being that has lost self-awareness but whose bodies can still follow their instincts. But what Angus created was different. It had no consciousness, no physical instincts, and was truly dead, but the flesh cells survived." Page 91. The two seem to be no different, but they are essentially different. Rory immediately went to the cold storage to take out various blood samples and serum and started the experiment again. According to his guess, if the zombie virus is a mutated enhanced serum, then only higher level genes are needed to produce a suppressive effect. After 1 hour, all 10 test samples completed the test reaction. Rory began to observe them one by one. The Beast King gene failed. Eternal genetic failure. Hulk gene failed. Red Hulk genetic failure. Enhancing serum number 1 failed. Number 2 failed. Lori gene. Damn, the antidote is me? Come to think of it, there are very few people in the universe with genetic sequences higher than Rory's. Thanos himself is an outstanding scientist, and he must have enhanced his genetic sequence. Rory used gene replacement technology to strengthen himself. His own gene sequence level was already infinitely close to Thanos. Later, he integrated the genes of the gods and formally established a bridge to communicate with the energy of the universe, and it was a dual channel of physical and spiritual. Theoretically, Rory's genetic level has reached its peak, and he can only upgrade it further by using the genes of the gods. Who? Rory exhaled a breath, glanced at Kathy and Maya Hansen who were sleeping soundly, then turned his head to continue the next experiment. In order to make the detoxifying serum, the first thing to do is to extract the effective substances from Rory's serum. The purification steps are cumbersome and very time-consuming. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. Kathy and Maya Hansen slept until they woke up naturally, and all their physical and mental fatigue was swept away. I sat up with my fluffy hair and found that Rory was still busy at the laboratory table. Kathy rubbed her hair, stood up, poured 2 glasses of water, and placed one of them on the laboratory table without disturbing Rory who was conducting the experiment. "Did you sleep well?" Rory didn't turn his head, but he knew it was Kathy next to him. "You slept soundly. You've been busy for many days straight. Do you want to stop and rest? It will be ready soon." Rory replied with his eyes fixed on the microscope. His hands moved steadily as he slowly extracted the required substance using the extractor and placed it into the culture tank. After finishing, he started the machine to prepare the serum sample. Buzz. After the machine ran for a while, a tube of light blue serum was produced. Kathy saw the freshly made serum and asked in surprise, "Is this the antidote serum? You really made it?" Rory looked at the serum and smiled faintly. "We'll know if it works after we try it. In fact, this tube of serum cannot be called an antidote, it is more like poison. The zombie virus kills the host and then infects the host cells to keep them alive. The serum produced by Rory can kill the zombie virus, which is equivalent to killing the host infected by the virus." Maya Hansen became excited when she heard that the antidote was ready and came over immediately. The 3 of them then went to the laboratory where the zombie Bucky was imprisoned. Although he had no hands or feet, the zombie Bucky still maintained considerable energy, rolling his dead fish eyes and roaring, as if he wanted to eat all the creatures in front of him. Rory took out a spray gun, put the diluted medicine into the spray gun, and then sprayed the atomized serum at the tied-up zombie Bucky. The reason why injection is not chosen is that there are too many infected people on the earth. If we make an injection, we can't give injections to everyone one by one. So the best way is to spray it with mist. Rory, Kathy, Maya Hansen, and the other 3 stared at the zombie Bucky with their 6 eyes. After the misted serum slowly fell on the zombie Bucky, it immediately reacted. The skin tissue quickly decayed as if it had been contaminated with sulfuric acid, turning into a pool of black water. Then it starts to spread from the place where the serum is contaminated to the surrounding area and then spreads throughout the body. It works. It really works. Rory, you are amazing. Kathy jumped up and down excitedly, then hugged Rory. Rory also laughed. If possible, he certainly didn't want to live in a world like a ghost cave. He handed the remaining serum to Maya Hansen and instructed, "Take it to the culture tank for serum culture. Remember to do a human harmlessness test first. Only start production after confirming that it is harmless to ordinary people." Rory's laboratory is not a production line, so its production capacity is destined not to be too high. This life-saving medicine has given the world half a chance to survive. As long as there is hope, it will be fine. Now that I have the antidote serum, I can finally go back and rest. Rory and Kathy walked out of the laboratory talking and laughing, and as soon as they came out, they met a pair of angry eyes. His daughter hasn't been home for many days and has been hanging out with a man. As an old father, his heart is bleeding. Dad. Kathy stuck out her tongue, waved goodbye to Rory, and immediately went to greet her old father. Rory chuckled and turned away. I returned to my residence and called both Anthony and Payne over. After spending many days in the laboratory, the first thing I do when I come out is to get to know the situation outside. Boss. Come, sit down and talk. Rory waved his hand and asked the two to sit down together. Payne glanced at the aloof Anthony and spoke first. Boss, let me speak first. Rory nodded. Payne reported, Nick Fury has persuaded officials from various countries to relocate civilians, and a large number of them have probably already been relocated. It's said that high-ranking officials and capitalists from various countries who contribute money and effort will enjoy priority relocation rights. I just contacted Federation President Ross 3 days ago. He's established a provisional government in an underground shelter and is directing the military to conduct a cleanup operation. The results haven't been very significant, but from what I hear, he's considering using nuclear weapons. Also, the island nation was destroyed. Because they had no strategic depth, they had nowhere to escape after the zombie crisis. A large number of islanders flocked to Tianchen Island, begging for mining jobs. Everything is running smoothly here in town. After Payne finished his report, Rory turned to look at Anthony. Anthony said coldly, I just received a message yesterday that the Avengers suffered heavy losses. Many people were killed. The only ones still active are Thor, Wanda, Doctor Strange, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and a few aliens. The rest are all gone. Rory smacked his lips after hearing this. Are there only these few people left in the powerful Avengers? He was ready to fight the Avengers, but they were all wiped out by the dead Angus. Boss, I think now is the perfect time to destroy the Avengers and Asgard. I request to fight. Anthony didn't fully understand the grudge between Rory and the Avengers, but anyone who was Rory's enemy was his, Anthony's, enemy and should all be destroyed. Rory didn't agree immediately, but said, the antidote serum has been prepared. Let's restore the Federation's strength first, and then we can talk about declaring war on Asgard. If we want to go to war, we have to fight Asgard and Wakanda together. If they don't want to consume the power of Tianchen Island, they naturally have to get the federal military to join in. Anthony seemed to understand Rory's intention and immediately said, okay, boss. I'll send someone to protect President Ross. 3 days later, the first batch of diluted antidote was produced and delivered to the federal military. It is not that easy to completely eliminate the zombies in the city. Many zombies are hiding in buildings or other hidden places. Spraying antidotes at low altitudes will definitely leave some of them slipping through the net. A thorough cleanup will take more time and effort. Batches of antidotes were shipped from Tianchen Island to all parts of the world. Humanity sounded the clarion call for a counterattack and entered the era of the Great Purge. Everyone joined hands to find the zombies hiding everywhere and clean them up. The zombie crisis event has officially entered its final stage. Only a part of those who had moved to Thanos' retirement planet returned, and most of the rest stayed there, planning to build it into a new home for mankind. 801/21/220. Factories stopped working, schools went on strike, and all the cities became deserted. Industry and agriculture have all regressed, and even anarchy has occurred in many areas. The crisis has been resolved, but humanity is facing even more difficult challenges. Before the zombie crisis is completely resolved and before human society is rebuilt, a pre-war meeting is taking place in the magnificent palace in the east of Tianchen Island. The theme of the meeting, Destroy Wakanda and Asgard. Chapter 107. After the crisis is resolved, I will be the biggest crisis. A pesticide sprayer flew low over, spraying a large amount of diluted antidote onto the ground. The zombies wandering in the city roared in the direction of the plane. A few minutes later, the roars that came one after another began to gradually disappear, and the waves of zombies standing on the streets fell down in large numbers like harvested ears of wheat. Nick Fury and Maria Hill on the plane observed the situation on the ground. Seeing that the poison was effective, they suddenly felt a lot more relieved. Although that guy named Rory is a bit arrogant, he is still very capable in biological research. Maria Hill had never met Rory, and all her knowledge of him came from hearsay. Nick Fury said calmly, the cleanup has just begun. Those hiding in buildings, underground, and outdoors are the hardest to clean up. If the cleanup is not thorough and some zombies slip through the net, the zombie crisis may come back. Currently, all areas where zombie crises have broken out have been listed as restricted areas. No one, whether civilians, military personnel, or superheroes, are allowed to enter. Nick Fury and Maria Hill returned to the airport in a pesticide sprayer. There were at least 30 planes parked on the runway, all ready to take off. Page 92. As soon as Nick Fury got off the plane, someone came to greet him. How is it? Is the antidote effective? It works, and it's very effective. The infected can be eliminated within 3 minutes. Nick Fury nodded. Great. Humanity is saved, and the Earth is saved. Upon hearing that the antidote serum was effective, everyone present immediately cheered. Entering the office building, Nick Fury asked the staff, "Have you counted the amount of antidote serum? The total amount is 582 units. According to the instructions provided by Tiantian Island, the minimum dilution concentration is 3%. The coverage area of 1 unit is approximately 800 square kilometers, which is roughly the size of New York City." Nick Fury frowned and shook his head after hearing this. "It's not enough, it's far from enough. Can you contact Celestial Island and try to provide as much as possible? Half of the world's cities and regions have fallen, and they are all major cities. There are also suburbs and buildings to clean up. The amount of antidote needed is far from enough." Dr. Banner came over and explained, "Tiantian Island doesn't have a complete production line, and I suspect the raw materials for the antidote must be very unusual, so Tiantian Island needs to keep it secret." When the zombie crisis first broke out, all the biologists in the world gathered together to conduct research, but their research results were not as good as Rory's alone. In addition to professionalism, it is likely related to raw materials. The production capacity of antidote cannot keep up. It will take a long time to clear out all the zombies. Yeah. Maria Hill stepped forward and said, "I'll be in charge of communicating with Tiantian Island and see if I can get more antidotes. The world government is paralyzed, and the Security Council is just a name. Although the President of the Federation appears, he refuses to communicate with SHIELD. When talking about the conflict between the Federation and SHIELD, we have to mention the Avengers. In the eyes of SHIELD and the Avengers, the Federation is like a chamber pot. They are eager to use it when they need it, but they despise it when they don't. President Ross already had a lot of objections to superheroes, and now with this happening, the relationship has reached a freezing point." Nick Fury said with a headache, "I'm going to contact President Ross. I hope he won't act like a child. All work is proceeding in an orderly manner. Clean up the zombies, restart the hydroelectric power plant, restore network communications, and reintegrate various social resources. The world seems to have entered a post-disaster reconstruction stage. Although the population has dropped sharply, everything is moving in a positive direction." Nick Fury flew to the federal provisional government in the western region. Following Seraph, a senior White House official, into a tall building. Nick Fury glanced at the agents on both sides and asked, "Ms. Seraph, when can I see the president?" "Mr. President is in a meeting and will be able to meet with you in about 20 minutes. Nick Fury suddenly stopped walking when he heard this and said, "Then let's go back in 20 minutes. I just want to go outside and get some fresh air." Seraph turned and looked over, meeting Nick Fury's gaze. There seemed to be a flash of lightning in his eyes. "Catch him." At the same time as Seraph gave the order, Nick Fury suddenly punched the agent on the left in the face, snatched the pistol and opened the safety in one go. Seraph also drew his pistol and pointed his gun at Nick Fury. "Nick, you can't run away, just surrender." Nick Fury frowned and asked, "President Ross should know why I am here and why I am doing this." "No reason. Maria Hill escaped from prison. All members of SHIELD are on the wanted list. It's my duty to catch you." Nick Fury naturally didn't believe this. He immediately questioned, "The world has become what it is now. What's the point of using these political tactics? It's no use saying these things to me." Seraph stated her position and attitude. She was just following orders, and debating right and wrong had nothing to do with her. At this time, 2 super soldiers from Celestial Island came from not far away. Nick Fury, who often dealt with people with superpowers, could tell at a glance that these 2 people were different. Wow. Nick Fury didn't want to get into trouble, so he simply let go of the pistol he had snatched, raised his hands, and said to Seraph, "Catch me." Before the news of Nick Fury's capture was reported back, Maria Hill had already flown to Celestial Island. Hill got off the plane and asked the soldier who met him, "Hello, I'd like to see Mr. Payne. Is he busy?" "Hello, Ms. Hill. Commander Payne asked me to pick you up. Please follow me." After getting Hill in the car, we headed straight for a town not far from the seaside. Before entering the town, Maria Hill saw from a distance a huge golden statue standing in the center of the town. The statue is of a young man wearing a white lab coat, holding a book in his left hand and a long sword in his right hand, with a firm gaze gazing at the sea level not far away. Hill has never met Rory, but she has seen Rory's photos, and the golden statue looks 90% similar to Rory. Although he could see it, he'll still ask the receptionist curiously, "Is this statue Rory?" The receptionist driving the car responded, "That's right. Dr. Rory saved the Earth twice." The islanders hope that the statue will allow their descendants to remember Dr. Rory's great achievements. The Avengers saved humanity, and Rory saved the Earth, that's true. After entering the town, Hill found that the small square was under martial law. The soldiers then took her to another government office. "Ms. Hill, Mr. Payne is in a meeting. Please wait here for a moment. Do not walk around. It will be very troublesome if you enter the restricted area without permission." "Okay, thanks for reminding me." After the soldiers left, Hill walked around the office, sat down in a chair by the window, and glanced out at the town. Just then, Kathy passed by the door with a bunch of freshly picked wildflowers, and Hill recognized her immediately. Surprised, "Kathy." Hearing someone calling her name, Kathy stopped and looked in the direction of the voice. "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm a good friend of your father Scott and Dr. Pym. Why are you here?" After Ant-Man and his family were taken away by the military, they seemed to have disappeared from the face of the Earth. When the zombie crisis broke out, the Avengers contacted Ant-Man many times, but unfortunately they were never able to get in touch. "Do you know my father?" Kathy looked at Hill in confusion and found that she had no impression of him. Hill smiled and nodded, "Of course, Scott is here too. He's busy working at the experimental site. Maybe you can see him when you come to his house tonight. I have something else to do, so I won't talk to you anymore. See you later." After saying hello, Kathy ran across the square to Rory's residence. When she arrived at Rui's house, she put the flowers in her hand into the vase on the kitchen windowsill, fiddled with them for a while, and nodded with satisfaction. Then he sat on a chair on the porch and looked towards the palace. Rui was holding a Tianchen Island meeting inside. They had agreed to have dinner together today, and he didn't know when the meeting would end. Inside the palace, almost all the important members of Tianchen Island gathered here. Payne and his office staff handle daily affairs. All of Payne's subordinates are ordinary people selected from the families of the members of Tianchen Island. They are responsible for handling daily affairs on Tianchen Island and external handovers. Anthony, the head of the Legion, and the captains of each team of the Legion. Today, the Super Soldier Corps has grown into a super force of more than 200 people, all of whom are heavily armored and fortified warriors, and their individual soldiers are invincible in team battles. Among them, there are 2 alloy teams composed of selected elites. Wearing adamantium alloy armor, their strength is definitely not weaker than that of Black Panther Chatra. On the other side were the miners and naval forces under Bronsky's command. Mining is the main occupation, but they can also temporarily serve as navy, mining in their spare time and boarding ships to transport supplies in wartime. There were 2 separate individuals sitting in the corner. One was Dr. Pym, representing the Ant-Man family, and the other was a Skrull, representing Gala. Rory used the name of Gaia to attract a large number of Skrulls to the Island of the Gods, but they did not live in the small town, but settled on another island not far from the Island of the Gods. The Skrulls are natural spies. Through simple genetic modification, they can be transformed into powerful warriors, making them a rare resource for Rory. If Gaia wants to safeguard the interests of the Skrulls and protect their safety, she must stay on the Island of the Gods. If she stays on the Island of the Gods, she will attract more Skrulls. He was easily tied to Rui's chariot. At the front steps of the palace, Rory, sitting on the throne, said softly, "The crisis is over. It's time to settle the scores with the Avengers." Anthony suggested that the main battle be held in Wakanda. "I think it's very appropriate. What do you think?" Anthony was the first to express his opinion. "I agree." Payne, agreed. Bronsky, agreed. Rui looked at Jiaya, who lowered her head and whispered, "I agree." Rory looked at Payne and ordered, "Payne, issue an ultimatum to Wakanda. Demand that Wakanda open up to the trade of technology and vibranium, or face the consequences." Payne immediately stood up and said, "As you wish, sir." Anthony, contact Ross and have him dispatch the federal military to assist Tianchen Island in its strategic deployment. Anthony stood up and said, "As you wish, sir." Then Rory looked at Jiaya. Jiaya was silent for a long time before she said, "Sir, the Skrulls can provide 1,000 warriors to serve you." Jiaya was also forced into a helpless situation. Since being captured, she has been locked up in Rory's laboratory for various experiments. Later, she attracted more Skrulls through her identity as a Super Skrull. After being released from the laboratory, she had thought about leaving, but she couldn't let go of her own people. She didn't want the Skrulls she attracted to become cannon fodder and miners in Rory's hands. "So I can only stay and compromise." Rui was very satisfied with Jiaya's attitude. After turning his head and being silent for a moment, Rui spoke again, Tien Shen Island will lead all of humanity to new heights. Whoever stands in the way of Tien Shen Island will become the enemy of the entire world. Everyone, let's go. The prelude to the war was officially opened, and Luo Rui finally took the first step towards the dynasty. Chapter 108, Wakanda is not long-lived, today is its last birthday. Page 93. When General Okoye of Wakanda received the ultimatum from Celestial Island, she thought she was dazzled. After confirming that she was not mistaken, she thought that Celestial Island was crazy. Reveal all of Wakanda's technology? Open up vibranium mines for trade? Isn't this clearly a sign of war? General Okoye found the mother of Chatra, the current ruler of Wakanda, and handed the notification document sent by Celestial Island to the Queen, saying, Celestial Island has gone crazy. They want to go to war with us. Mother Chatra looked up and asked, are we sure we can win? Wakanda is not afraid of any war. Okoye said with great determination. This was her duty as a general. What is Shuri busy with? Okoye replied, Princess Shuri is doing scientific research in the laboratory. Go ahead, talk to her, and prepare for war in advance. Payne returned to the office, looked at Hill with a smile and asked, Ms. Hill, the purpose of your visit this time is about the antidote, right? That's right. The amount of antidote is too small. Zombie crises have broken out all over the world. If we wait even one more day, people everywhere will be in greater danger. Payne shook his head. I'm very sorry, Ms. Hill. Due to limited manpower and the specialized work, the low production volume is normal. I'm afraid I can't help you with that. Hill asked rhetorically, what if we sent more biologists to help? I'm sorry, the raw materials are confidential, and Dr. Rory said the synthesis formula is very confidential. If it were obtained by others, it would likely create a virus crisis as dangerous as the zombie crisis. At this moment, rows of troops lined up in front of the square outside, trucks of ammunition and supplies were transported onto ships, and some people came to see them off. Maria Hill was surprised when she saw this and asked, Mr. Payne, what are you doing? Don't be nervous, it's just a small matter. A trivial matter? It's obviously a war mobilization. Hill is not a fool who has never experienced anything. Although he only took a glance, judging from the configuration, Tien Shen Island is obviously preparing for war. Hill, though nervous on the inside, appeared calm. He stood up and said, in that case, I won't bother Mr. Payne anymore. I hope that once the antidote is ready, you can give us some priority. Tien Shen Island entered a state of war mobilization, and Maria Hill was eager to pass on the news she saw here back immediately. Payne has already seen this, so how could he let Hill go so easily? He stood up and said with a smile, Ms. Hill, I would like to ask you to stay for a while, so that no one will say that we on Tien Shen Island don't know how to entertain guests. No thanks. I still have a lot of work to do, so I won't stay any longer. Ma'am, I don't think you understand the situation. I mean, you have to stay. Hill. After one day. One after another, warships left the federal military port and headed towards the east coast of Africa. The elite troops of Tien Shen Island were dispatched, and the warships carrying various equipment crossed half of the Indian Ocean and arrived at the Wakanda border on the east coast of Africa first. Call out. An aircraft took off from the coastline at an extremely fast speed and flew over the fleet. Shuri was piloting the aircraft, and Okoye used a loudspeaker to warn, back off. This is Wakanda. If you take another step forward, you will be destroyed. Okoye always speaks with a look of contempt and a condescending tone. Payne, standing on the bow, shook his head speechlessly and asked Anthony beside him, a group of indigenous tribes, where does their sense of superiority come from? Anthony ignored Payne and took the microphone, replying through the ship's loudspeaker. Wakanda, surrender. Or die. Okoye almost exploded with anger when he heard Anthony's reply. Then let's try it. Who will die, me or you? Okoye said, throwing away the intercom in his hand and turning to Surui, let's go back and prepare for battle. Shuri nodded and controlled the aircraft to return to Wakanda. After landing, General Okoye immediately summoned all the tribal leaders of Wakanda to prepare for the possible war that might break out. Outside the coastline, a federal aircraft carrier and 13 warships formed a formation and lined up in formation. Landing craft carrying various ground equipment headed towards the shore to prepare for landing. Bang bang bang. A team of super soldiers wearing adamantium armor took the lead, and the other super soldiers followed behind and boarded the landing craft one after another. Anthony waved his hand and said, give the order, set off. Pass on General Anthony's order, set off. Send the message. Set off. Set off. Dozens of landing craft headed towards the shore at the same time. The tribe on this coastline is just one of the many tribes in Wakanda. The main city is inland, and it takes time to transport heavy weapons and combat aircraft. Without equipment support, Okoye did not dare to go out to sea to fight the fleet composed of Tianchen Island and the Federation. The best way was ground contact warfare. Warriors from various Wakanda tribes formed a square formation and stood guard not far from the shore, holding their weapons tightly and staring intently at the approaching landing craft. Yabimbe! 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 General Okoye raised his spear high and shouted slogans to boost the morale of his own troops. The moment the landing craft stopped, Okoye swung his spear towards the Celestial Island Legion and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Wakanda forever!" Roar! The Wakanda tribal warriors shouted loudly and rushed towards the Celestial Island Legion. Anthony, who was standing at the bow, snorted coldly, stretched out his alloy bone knife and pointed. "Kill them all! Kill!" The super soldiers wearing adamantium suits lined up in a row, raised their swords and charged forward, while the other super soldiers without adamantium suits showed off their individual weapons. Some were carrying Umitba Gatling guns, some were carrying Sky Monkey RPGs, and some were carrying grenade launchers that were big toys for real men. There are even 2 super soldiers combined together, carrying a 20mm caliber machine gun as a weapon. Although the weapon styles are fancy, none of them are of low power. Boom! Boom! Thump! 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 Dozens of Gatling gun barrels rotated, and the firepower formed a large net covering the Wakanda camp. The Wakanda warrior at the front immediately lifted his cloak to form an energy shield. Although the level of technology is very advanced, the warriors of Wakanda are mortal and can still be saved by Gatling Bodhisattva. Hurry! Get out of the way! Brinsky, who was hiding in the crowd, suddenly transformed, jumped on the spot and crashed directly into the center of the Wakanda troops. He killed one small black man with one punch, and with a casual sweep of his arm, 3 or 4 people flew off on the spot. Kill! The spear in Okoye's hand stabbed at the super soldier in the front row. Ding! The vibranium spear only left a shallow mark on the surface of the alloy armor. Okoye was stunned for 0.5 seconds, and then an adamantium blade came down from above, passing by the tip of Okoye's nose. It almost split the black general in half. Buzz buzz buzz. Shuri, holding an energy gun, blasted the super soldier in front of Okoye away, then shouted, "Okoye, it's an adamantium suit, be careful." Okoye continued to fight with all his might. But the more they fought, the more frightened they became. These 2 teams wearing adamantium armor were simply BT. The invulnerable armor, combined with the physical fitness of super soldiers, allowed them to sweep across the battlefield as if they were in an empty space. Watching the Wakanda tribal warriors fall one after another, Okoye shouted in pain, "Support, we need support." Surui fired a shot, then looked down at his watch and replied urgently, "Support will arrive in 3 minutes." As soon as Okoye turned around, she found that Anthony had come to her without her knowing when. "Your Majesty." "Dream." Okoye angrily picked up Anthony's alloy bone knife and then stabbed him with a gun. Ding! Vibranium and adamantium collided, but no one was immediately clear which was better. One is a female general who wields vibranium equipment and has many years of experience in fighting on the battlefield, and the other is a super soldier who has been strengthened by radiation viruses, repair factors, and adamantium alloy. The 2 of them fought together in an instant. Okoye gritted his teeth and continued to attack with his spear, but was blocked by Anthony several times. "Huh, is that all you can do?" Ding! The bone knife slashed across the gun barrel between Okoye's hands, causing sparks to fly. The huge force made Okoye involuntarily take 2 steps back. Anthony took advantage of the victory and prepared to get rid of this black female general whom he hated so much in one fell swoop. Okoye suddenly raised a handful of sand with his toes, and Anthony subconsciously raised his hands and closed his eyes. Poof! The spear instantly pierced Anthony's abdomen. Before Okoye had time to be happy, Anthony ignored the pain and attacked again with the alloy bone knife. Okoye was forced to let go of the spear and rolled on the spot, barely avoiding the blade. Anthony stood in place and pulled out the spear bit by bit under Okoye's gaze. The wound she stabbed was repaired at an extremely fast speed and became as good as new after a few seconds. "What kind of monster are you?" Okoye was shocked. She had never seen a human with such regenerative ability. Page 94. Anthony smiled coldly, "In the words of the boss, you primitive tribes are all a bunch of frogs in the well. There are still many things you don't know. As long as his heart doesn't die instantly, Anthony is immortal. His entire skull is made of adamantium, making it almost impossible to kill him." Boom! Wakanda support finally arrived at the battlefield at this time. One aircraft after another began to bomb the Celestial Island Legion, and a large number of Wakanda warriors came to support on transport vehicles. The Wakandans were numerous, swarming like ants. Anthony pressed the intercom and ordered, "Notify the Skrull warriors to enter the battlefield, and leave the Air Force to the Federation." The carrier-based aircraft on the aircraft carrier took off quickly and fought with Wakanda's aircraft. The Skrulls' enhanced warriors are also very useful. The Skrulls have innate genes with extremely strong tolerance. The Extremis virus, which has a very low survival rate, has an almost 100% success rate when applied to the Skrulls, and any strengthening potion can turn them into super soldiers. Except for being a little ugly, the Celestials gave almost all their preference to the Skrulls. Rory provides the Skrulls with a new home and a good environment for growth, and the Skrulls will fight for him. It is an exchange and also a loyalty. As the war progressed, the Vanguard troops' weapons and ammunition were gradually exhausted, and they drew their weapons and engaged in hand-to-hand combat with Wakanda. The casualty ratio between the two sides was as high as 10:1. It took 10 Wakanda warriors to replace one soldier from the Celestial Island Legion, and he was from the Skrulls. After fighting for so long, none of the Super Soldier Corps were killed, with only a few injured at most. The beach on the coast has been dyed red, and the sea water keeps washing the blood off the sand. More and more people fell down, and just when Okoye felt despair, suddenly a rainbow beam of light descended on the battlefield, and Storm Axe flew out first to repel several super soldiers. The rainbow beam of light disappeared, and Storm Axe flew backwards back into Thor's hands. The arrival of Thor boosted the morale of the Wakanda people, and Okoye once again took up his gun to face Anthony, the Deathblade. Chapter 109, The Fall of the Old Forces heralds the rise of new forces. Stop, don't fight anymore. Banner, mind your own business. Bruce Banner transformed into the Hulk and rushed into the battlefield, wrestling with Brinsky, who had transformed into the Abomination. Valkyrie, the Valkyrie, held up her sword, blocking Anthony from chopping off Okoye's head. She said, "Listen, if there's any misunderstanding, we can sit down and talk. There's nothing to talk about. If you dare to stop me again, you'll be the next to die." Drax the Destroyer, Nebula, and Groot the Treeman all entered the battlefield, but they did not kill the Celestial Island Legion. Instead, they tried their best to stop the fighting between the two sides. The purpose of these superheroes coming here is not to start a war with Celestial Island. The outbreak of the zombie crisis has caused the Avengers to lose too many superheroes, and they have lost the chance to defeat Rory. The only appeal now is to seek peace. What no one expected was that the Island of the Gods actually took the initiative and directly declared war on Wakanda. Without orders, the Tien Shen Island Legion will naturally not stop, nor do they want to stop. If Wakanda is destroyed, Rory will be crowned king, and these people will become generals under Rory. In the past, he was just a soldier, earning a meager salary to support his family. Now he finally has the opportunity to make a name for himself, and no one is willing to give it up. Anthony shook off Valkyrie and attacked Okoye again. Squeak. The alloy bone knife cut Valkyrie's arm, and then kicked her away. Seeing this, Thor, the god of thunder, rushed over with an axe. I said, "Stop your hands." The storm axe was wrapped in the power of thunder and struck Anthony hard. Anthony raised the bone knife to resist, but he could not withstand the power of Thor at all. The axe blade pressed on the bone knife, leaving a huge wound on Anthony's chest. Bang! Anthony flew backwards more than 10 meters and fell heavily on the beach. After a few seconds, the wound healed as before. Anthony got up from the ground and sneered, "Let's start a war, huh? Come on." Valkyrie was injured just now, so Thor was a little anxious. Only then did he realize that he was there to stop the fight. He quickly raised his hand and explained, "Hey brother, I admit that I was a little heavy-handed just now, but you're not hurt, right? How about we just let it go?" Anthony was convinced. It turned out that only someone with muscles in his brain could say such words. Anthony said coldly, "If you have anything to say, you can tell my boss. Say it in a nice way, and maybe he won't hit you too hard." "Your boss? Rory? Where is he?" Thor asked 3 questions in a row, and just as he finished speaking, he saw a figure falling vertically from the air, and with a bang, a deep hole was created on the beach. Rory jumped out of the plane, shook the sand off his trouser legs, walked out of the deep pit, and said with a smile, "Since everyone is here, let's solve this together." Rory's appearance immediately made everyone nervous. To be honest, no one knows how powerful Rory is. Among all the people present, perhaps the only one who can pose a threat to Rory is the axe that chopped off Thanos' head. Thor stepped forward and asked, "Rory, what do you want me to do to make you stop?" "Submit, or kill everyone in Wakanda," Rory replied calmly. Didn't Asgard wipe out enough races when it conquered the 9 realms? Without deterrence, how could the Asgardians be so high and mighty? And how could Odin sit firmly on the throne of the God King? Now the opposite is unacceptable. Anthony glanced at Thor with disdain, then walked around and continued fighting. Thor tightened the Stormbreaker in his hand and was silent for a moment before suddenly rushing towards Rory. As long as he could get rid of Rory, the war would naturally end. That's the truth, but Thor is a little too naive. Clang. Stormbreaker chopped at the energy shield, unable to penetrate even an inch. Rory transformed his right hand into a sword, sweeping it across and forcing Thor back. He laughed and said, "I thought you would bring Asgardian warriors to join the battle. I didn't expect only a few of them to show up." Rory's words imply that he wants to solve the problem of Asgard as well. Thor can't help it and attacks Rory again. Dang. Dang. Bang. Thor, who lacked flexibility, was kicked 30 meters by Rory and stopped after crashing into a giant tree. For ordinary people or ordinary superheroes, Thor's powerful physical fitness is enough to crush everyone. But for more powerful people, Thor's strength lies in the power of Thor in his body and the Stormbreaker made of URU metal in his hand, so physical fitness is not that important. If we really compare physical strength, Rory, whose genetic level is almost maximum, is definitely stronger than Thor. The dizzy Thor climbed out of the mud, recalled Stormbreaker, and attacked Rory again. He easily dodged the axe blade, but his backhand sword was blocked by the handle of Storm Axe. Thor subconsciously locked Rory's hands, making both of them unable to move. "Rory, stop it." The corner of Rory's mouth rose slightly, and the energy sword in his hand suddenly became longer, almost blinding Thor's other eye. Swish. A strand of golden hair on Thor's forehead was cut off, leaving a wound on his forehead. Frightened, Thor quickly let go of Rory and took a few steps back. When the others saw Thor was in trouble, they immediately ran to help. On the way, Nebula shot Rory with a laser gun, instantly burning through Rory's coat. Seeing that the laser gun was ineffective, he pulled out 3 telescopic batons and wanted to engage in close combat with Rory. Drax the Destroyer provided support from the other side, and together with Thor who attacked from the front, they attacked from 3 sides at the same time. The fighting instinct in Luo's genes made the choice instantly. He transformed 2 daggers into his hands, bent backward and picked up Nebula and Drax, then did a backflip on the ground with his swords crossed to block the chopping Storm Axe. Then he turned 360 degrees to release the force and stabbed at the Nebula with a sword. Xingyun used all her strength to dodge, and the energy sword passed by her chest. If she was even 0.1 seconds slower, she might have been stabbed by Luo. After missing the first attack, Rory turned his target and slashed at Drax. Drax, who possesses super endurance, has a body that is difficult to destroy, except for weapons created from cosmic energy. Poof. Drax, who was too confident in himself, was knocked to the ground. Drax, who had not been injured for a long time, was stunned for a long time. While Rory was fighting with a few others, Wakanda on the front battlefield had already shown signs of defeat. A large number of Wakanda warriors fell. No matter how many people there were, they were no match for the legion of super soldiers. Seeing her people being slaughtered one by one, Princess Surui finally couldn't stand it anymore and shouted loudly, "Stop! We surrender!" Surui. Okoye looked at Surui in shock. It is an honor for a warrior to die on the battlefield, but from Surui's perspective, such a death has no value. The situation on the battlefield was completely one-sided. Even if all the tribesmen were sent to the battlefield, it would only allow the super warrior army of Tianshan Island to kill for a while longer. Looking around the place, except for some Skrulls who fell, all the rest of the dead were people from Wakanda. What is the point of continuing such a war? The Wakanda warriors slowly stopped and gathered around Princess Shuri. Then the members of the Super Soldier Legion began to gather towards Rory, surrounding Thor and the others. Luo smiled slightly. "How about calling the Asgardian warriors over? If Wakanda surrenders, what's the point of him staying here?" Thor snorted coldly and said, "Rory, this won't end well for you." He turned around and continued to shout, "Groot, come here, let's get out of here. I am Groot." Thor raised Stormridge high, and the Rainbow Bridge appeared instantly, taking Thor, Groot and Nebula beside him, and Drax who was lying on the ground away from the battlefield. Hulk Banner, who was fighting with Abomination, saw this and immediately dropped Abomination and ran over, shouting, "Wait, there's me too." Page 95. The next second, the Rainbow Bridge disappeared. Banner, who was still waving, stood there and looked at Rory awkwardly. "Hey, I'm here to break up the fight." Rory responded to Banner with a friendly smile, then instructed his men, "Send Dr. Banner to the ship to rest, and then take Dr. Banner to visit the Celestial God Island afterward." Banner opened his hands helplessly. He knew that he was captured and guessed was just a euphemism. Luo came in front of Shurui. Anthony, who was following beside him, raised his alloy bone knife and pressed it on Surui's shoulder, saying coldly, "Kneel down." "You." Okoye glared. Anthony turned his head to look at Okoye and said, "If you don't want to die, kneel down. There is really no need to continue fighting at this point. Wakanda has lost, and continuing to fight will only lead to the destruction of the country and the race. Surrendering can at least ensure that the remaining members of the tribe continue to survive." Surui was silent for a long time, and finally knelt slowly in front of Luo. No matter how unwilling Okoi was, she had no choice but to kneel down with Surui and finally lowered her proud head. Rory looked around and saw all the Wakandan warriors dropping their weapons and kneeling on one knee. Let's go and take a look at our spoils. Rory raised his legs and walked towards Wakanda, with the super soldiers following behind with Princess Shuri and General Okoi. When we reached the depths of the forest and opened the energy barrier, we saw a completely different scene inside. After entering, Luo felt like he was screwed. In the distance, the main city, full of technological sense, is magnificent and majestic, and aircraft beyond real technology are suspended in the air. But the residents here live in thatched houses, eat wild fruits and dried fish, and there is not a single grain of food on the fertile land. Isn't this just a tribe of savages who have learned to use high technology? This really proves the meaning of the saying that wealth cannot bring civilization. Take the aircraft to the main city, arrive at the top floor of the main city and open the door. All the tribal elders are gathered here. Shatra's mother Raymonda sat high on the throne, raised her proud head and seemed to look at the people who came in with her nostrils. As Luo stepped into the hall, the guards raised their spears and a group of tribal elders chattered in words that Luo could not understand at all, but they were definitely not good words. Noisy. Anthony waved his hand, and two teams of super soldiers behind him immediately rushed into the hall, knocked down the guards, and then dragged a dozen tribal elders to the ground. Anthony waved his hand again, and more than a dozen heads rolled to the ground. What? Shuri and her mother Raymonda screamed at the same time. Anthony said coldly, from today on, there is no need for elders, kings, or queens here anymore. Wakanda will have a new master. Rory walked up to Chatra's mother Raymonda. Raymonda stubbornly refused to give up the throne, as if his butt was welded to the throne. Anthony came over, grabbed Raymonda's collar, pulled her off the throne, and threw her in the middle of the hall. Mom. Surui immediately ran over to help Raymonda up and check if she was injured. Raymonda stared at Rory, and after a moment 2 lines of tears flowed out. After Chatla's death, she wanted to protect the country, but eventually it was destroyed. Rory didn't sit in the chair, but simply turned around twice before going to the window and looking down at Wakanda. 2 minutes later, Rory, with his back to the crowd, said, inform Ross to arrange for someone to come and take over Wakanda. What awaits Wakanda will be a thorough purge. Chapter 110 I fight against the six-barreled god. Wakanda's defeat was like dropping an atomic bomb into a calm sea, instantly causing huge waves. It's not because of the destruction of Wakanda, but because of the destruction of Wakanda's God Island. They have already occupied the adamantium resources of Celestial Island, and now they have occupied Wakanda's vibranium and world-leading technology. What will happen next? Tiantian Island quickly gave an answer. Tenjin Island Representative Payne submitted a proposal to establish a world-united government to the Security Council. The outbreak of the zombie crisis led to the dissolution of many governments. Some had their brains eaten by zombies, while others ran away to open up a second planet for mankind, and the population dropped sharply by March 4. In order to facilitate the management and handling of social issues and the rational allocation of resources, Tiantian Island proposed the establishment of a world-united government for unified management. All human forces should join together to vigorously develop science and technology, and strive to enter the era of the universe as soon as possible. The future is very beautiful, but there is only one core purpose, which is centralization. Who will be in charge of the coalition government? Of course, it belongs to Tiantian Island. The coalition government in the front is just a worker, and the Tiantian Island above is the real ruler. Whether you agree or not, you have to agree, otherwise you will be the next Wakanda. There were some who resisted, but in the end they all turned to dust. From the day the coalition government was established, the Rory dynasty officially arrived. What Rory has to consider next is the few remaining members of the Avengers, and then how to lead mankind out of the earth and conquer the vast universe together. By the way, find some more worthy research materials. Luo's self-strengthening has reached a bottleneck, and it is difficult to find ways to improve his strength on Earth. So I relaxed a lot on my research and started dating Kathy instead. Ever since the fall of Wakanda, whenever Scott saw Rory and Cassie together, he would pretend not to see them and walk away. It's not that I'm afraid of disturbing the two of them, but I don't want to embarrass myself. In the small square of Tiantian Island, Kathy held Rory's arm and sat in front of the small fountain. After chatting and laughing for a while, Kathy suddenly said, Rory, my experiment is almost complete. I even received signals from the quantum realm yesterday. Once I decipher these signals, maybe I can learn the secrets of the quantum realm. Rory's expression froze after hearing this, and he suddenly remembered that Kathy seemed to have been pulled into the quantum realm through a homemade machine. There's a big boss in there, his name seems to be Conqueror Kong. It doesn't matter what it's called. What matters is that this boss seems to have a tool that can travel through the multiverse. If we can get this, wouldn't we be able to accomplish our goal in one step? Luo Rui suddenly became interested. Just as he was about to speak, a figure suddenly fell from the sky. Scarlet Witch Wanda's attire has changed a little. She now wears a red crown on her head, and her energy fluctuations seem to be much stronger than before. Rory, take me to your original universe. As soon as Vision appeared, he wanted to take Rory away. Wanda could no longer suppress her longing for Vision and didn't want to wait even a second longer. Rory asked curiously, have you found Agatha? Rory had previously told Wanda the whereabouts of the Darkhold. The Guardian Wizard knew the origin of the Darkhold, and the replica of the Darkhold was in Agatha's hands. Strange refused to tell Wanda where the Darkhold of the Mystic Nine originated, so during the battle between Celestial Island and Wakanda, Wanda found the witch Agatha and drained all her magic. By studying the magic in the Divine Book and combining it with her experience of being trapped in another dimension, she quickly figured out how to open the dimensional rift. As he spoke, he began to cast chaos magic. A red magic halo appeared in the sky, covering the town of Tianshan Island, and then gathered together little by little. Suddenly, a black dot appeared in front of Wanda. Countless red magic spells converged towards the small black dot, and then gradually expanded bit by bit. Luo Rui was confused and quickly stopped him, saying, "No, you're ready but I'm not. Stop now." The black spot that appeared out of nowhere grew bigger and bigger, from the size of a sesame seed to the size of a bowl. At this time, the other side of the black hole could be seen clearly. It seemed to be a street. Rory now regrets provoking this crazy woman. She would do anything for Vision. As time passed, Wanda managed to pull a small black dot into a portal across the multiverse. Luo Rui was numb. Wanda wiped the sweat off her face and turned back until the portal stabilized. Get ready if you need anything. The portal won't be stable for long. Luo Rui was speechless and said, Wanda, can we discuss this and leave the time travel for another day? No, either you come with me now, or I arrest you and take you away. Your choice. Now Wanda has transformed into the real Scarlet Witch and is determined to take Rory away. Luo Rui, who is immune to physical attacks, also has a headache with these guys who use magic. If he were given an Infinity Stone now, he would definitely drive Wanda out of this universe. Kathy looked at Rory nervously, and Rory gave her a reassuring look. Wanda saw the exchange between the two and suddenly said, if you can't bear to leave her, take her with you. Of course not. Cassie's family is still here. He can't take Ant-Man and his entire family of troublemakers with him. And Rory had no intention of going with Wanda at all. Just as Rory was thinking about how to deal with Wanda, the clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed to both sides, and an indescribably huge figure appeared above everyone's heads. It looks like a human, but has 6 light bulbs hanging on its face. Luo Rui suddenly exclaimed after seeing it, the celestial gods. What? Wanda's attention was focused on the 6 light bulbs and she didn't pay attention to what Rory said. Tina and the elves from the Eternals also ran out at this time, and they were stunned when they saw Alyssum from the Celestials. The gods had clearly taken Cersei away, so why did she come back? Page 96. Before Luo Rui could figure it out, a restraining force suddenly gathered towards him. Luo Rui subconsciously released all the energy of the universe to resist. Not good. There was almost no room for resistance, and Luo Rui was directly imprisoned and unable to move. The next second, Luo Rui took off from the spot and rushed towards the god clan, and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. Rory! Rory! Scarlet Witch and Cassie screamed at the same time, but Rory was no longer there. At this time, Luo Rui had already appeared in front of Alyssum of the Celestial clan. Alyssum was so huge that Rory looked so small in front of him. Rory, you have harmed a member of the Celestial tribe and caused her to fall into eternal sleep. I will spare the earth, but I will judge you. Alyssum had learned the whole story from Cersei. Luo Rui was in charge of the whole thing, which eventually led to the death of a god. Tiamut of the Celestial god is dead, and there is no point in destroying the earth, but he will not let the instigator, Rory, go. This time he comes here to judge Rory. Wait. It was Cersei who did this, what does it have to do with me? It is impossible to speak in space because there is no air, but now he can speak and even breathe normally. It must be the 6-barreled god Alyssum who is controlling all this. Alyssum patiently replied, Cersei is responsible, but you are the one behind everything that happened. I am an earthling, I want to protect the earth, I am right? Luo Rui argued loudly. When the god Tiamut awakens, he will create more earths, so you are guilty. After Arsum answered, he continued, I will erase your memory and transform you into a true eternal. In the future, you will protect other planets together with the Eternals to atone for what you did today. When Luo Rui heard that the 6-barreled god Alyssum was going to turn him into a slave without memories, his heart instantly turned cold. After working so hard for so long, this is the outcome? Why? There is no reason to talk to the weak, and the gods have destroyed more planets than Luo Rui has ever seen, so he has never been a kind god. Luo Rui released all the cosmic energy to try to break free from the restraints of the six-barreled god, but the little cosmic energy in his body was nothing compared to the six-barreled god. Give up your futile resistance. You will face the judgment of the god Alyssum. Alyssum gathered his energy and prepared to completely erase all the memories from Rory's brain. In fact, Rory would not be found by the six-barreled celestial being so soon, because Scarlet Witch Wanda opened a channel to the parallel universe and was detected by the six-barreled celestial being. Arsham thought Rory was going to escape, so he appeared on Earth and captured Rory. Rory doesn't know this yet. If he knew, he would definitely curse at Scarlet Witch. A huge amount of energy rushed towards Luo Rui, and the squeezing feeling seemed to be able to crush him at any time. No matter how Luo Rui struggled, no matter how he resisted, he could never be a match for the six-barreled god. Luo Rui gritted his teeth, looked at Alyssum with hatred, and shouted, "If one day comes, I will definitely slaughter all the Celestials. Your wish is wishful thinking. Your tiny body is not enough to support more cosmic energy, so your wish will never be fulfilled." Cosmic energy? I need more cosmic energy. Yes. I remember now. Luo Rui's eyes widened, and he gathered all the cosmic energy into one hand, finally finding a part that could move. The next second, he suddenly took out a colorless potion, an unknown potion accidentally made from Super Serum, Immortal Gene, and God Gene. The current situation is that you either get brainwashed and become a slave of the six-barreled god, or use this potion to fight for an unknown result. Luo Rui injected the medicine into his body without any hesitation. At this time, the six-barreled god Alyssum was manipulating cosmic energy to explore Rory's brain. Because Rory had a fusion of both neural and physical god genes, it was more difficult to delete Rory's memory than other Eternals. Suddenly, the cosmic energy controlled by the six-barreled god was expelled from Luo Rui's body, and Alyssum seemed stunned. Immediately afterwards, Luo Rui, who was as small as an ant in his eyes, began to expand rapidly, and countless cosmic energies began to gather into Luo Rui's body like a whirlpool. Every cell is beating and every drop of blood is burning. The golden light illuminated the entire earth. People raised their heads, as if standing in front of the sun and realizing their own insignificance. Ah! Open! Open it for me! Luo Rui's roar cannot propagate in the universe, but it can cause ripples of spatial resonance in a vacuum environment. Although still tiny, Luo Rui, who had grown to the same size as the head of the celestial being Alyssum, left a majestic image in the hearts of all earthlings. Burning mortal bodies to fight against gods. Ah! R. S. M. Rory roared, gathering all the cosmic energy he could control and pressing it madly towards Alyssum. The Celestials, this is the first time since the birth of the universe that a living being has waved its fist at the Celestials. On the earth he created, human beings were created by his own hands. Alyssum was furious. How dare you rebel against God, you ant? You will be punished endlessly by Alyssum. The two energies converged together, forming a ripple in the universe that spread out in all directions. Wherever the light wave passed, it seemed as if even space was distorted. Rory released energy desperately, completely disregarding the limit of the energy his body could withstand. Even if it meant death, he would make Alyssum pay the price. Just when Rory was about to be drained, the gathered energy suddenly exploded, and time and space all stopped. Only Alyssum reached out to grab Rory, but unfortunately he was still a step too late. A black hole appeared at the location where the cosmic energy flashed, and in the blink of an eye, it sucked Alyssum in. Then Luo Rui's eyes rolled back and he completely lost consciousness. Chapter 111 The world is broken, the wizard fixes it. Having lost his energy support, Luo Rui was captured by the Earth's gravity and began to fall towards the Earth. Just when everyone thought that Rory would smash the Earth into pieces, Rory's body actually began to shrink gradually, and after entering the atmosphere, it had almost returned to its original size. Seeing this, Wanda on the Island of Gods immediately used magic to fly towards the falling Rory. The moment he got close, he immediately cast magic on Luo Rui. Anyone can die except Rory, because Wanda still relies on Rory to find vision in another world. The friction in the air produced flames, burning all of Rory's clothes. After slowing down, he was controlled by Wanda to fall back to Celestial Island. Anthony immediately found a blanket to cover the naked Rory. After an unknown amount of time, Luo Rui slowly woke up, his eyes dull and lifeless. Wanda immediately leaned over and patted Rory's cheek, shouting, "Rory, wake up." Wanda. "Rory, tell me how to find your universe." Wanda doesn't care about Rory's life or death, she only cares about how to find vision. Luo Rui opened his mouth and seemed to regain some consciousness. After a moment, he said with difficulty, "Take me away quickly." The black hole just now did not kill the six-barreled god Alyssum. Alyssum was just teleported to an unknown place in the universe by the energy flash created by Rory. If he doesn't leave now, he will be dead when the six-barreled god comes looking for him again. Anthony, who had been silent beside him, suddenly picked up Rory and said firmly, "Boss, I'm going with you." After saying that, he strode towards the portal opened by Scarlet Witch Wanda. Kathy followed subconsciously, but was pulled back by Ant-Man Scott, who whispered, "You can't go." "Dad, but Rory." Before Kathy could finish her words, Wanda suddenly raised her hand and released magic, snatching Kathy from Scott, and then took Kathy into the portal. "Kathy." The next second, the portal torn open by chaos magic closed instantly, and Scott, who was chasing after him, was instantly empty-handed. "No." Strange on Camartage kept scratching his head, pulling out handfuls of hair at random, and almost turned himself bald in one day. Master Wang was also very worried. He sighed for a long time and then turned around and asked, "What should we do now?" Strange shook his head. "Unless I find the Book of Vishanti, I can't repair the Earth's protective array." The three holy sanctuaries were built by the first Supreme Sorcerer. Their purpose was certainly not for beauty, but to be the core of the Earth's protective array. With this magic circle, the Earth can be protected from interference from other dimensions and the multiverse. But just yesterday, Rory actually had an energy war with a god in outer space, and the energy aftermath did not reach the Earth because it was blocked by the protective magic circle. The overwhelmed protective magic circle became riddled with holes in the energy aftermath, causing the Earth to lose its magical protection ability. The Earth without its protective array is like a park in the city center, where anyone can come in and stroll around at will. If discovered by the dimensional demon or by mages from other multiverses, it is very likely to bring unpredictable disasters to the Earth in this universe. Where are you going to find the Book of Vishanti? The Book of Vishanti is a grimoire created by the Trinity of Gods, Agamotto, Ashatu, and Hogs, which records all the white magic in the world. The protective array of the Earth was taken from the Book of Vishanti, but the whereabouts of the Book of Vishanti is still unknown. Strange was silent for a long time before he said, "There must be clues to the Book of Vishanti in the multiverse. By the way, let's find the whereabouts of Wanda and Rory." "Well, I wish you all the best." The wizard named Wang took over Strange's title of Supreme Sorcerer during the 5 years of the Xiaomi, but it was just a title. He would still defer to Strange on matters of magic. He naturally had no objection to how far into the universe Strange planned to travel in search of the Book of Vishanti. "Before I leave, I'll set up a temporary magic circle. If I'm not back before the magic circle disappears, then I'll be on my own." Strange wasn't the only one having a headache. Page 97. The newly established world government was even more troubled. Originally, with the endorsement of Tenshin Island, the world government could smoothly pass through the painful period of power transfer, but the disappearance of Rory caused the world government to become an official organization in name only. Former Federation President Ross has now been appointed Secretary General of the world government. With the support of the Federation and the fact that the power of Tenshin Island has not completely disappeared, the world government can still barely hold on. In the second month after Rory disappeared, the first rebel force appeared. That's right, Wakanda, which was wiped out by the Celestial Island, rebelled. The tribes reorganized and wanted to take back the vibranium mines. Naturally, they were ruthlessly strangled by the Celestial Island Super Soldier Corps and the Federal Army. Payne is still in charge of the management of the affairs of Tianshan Island, and he continues to develop Tianshan Island according to Rory's ideas. Rory is not dead, and everyone is waiting for Rory's return. Ant-Man and his family did not leave, but stayed on Celestial Island waiting for Cassie, while continuing to study time travel in the quantum realm. If Kathy really can't come back, they can also travel through time and space through the quantum realm to find Kathy. Maya Hansen still stays on Tianshan Island. She is the only person on Tianshan Island who can enter the laboratory, but she only has the right to use the laboratory. She couldn't get into the refrigerated safe where various experimental materials and serum blood samples were stored. It was made entirely of adamantium, triple-locked, and had a fixed self-destruct program. If the vault is not unlocked, the internal detector will immediately destroy everything in it if it detects any abnormality. In addition, the Hulk, Bruce Banner and the Super Skrull guy also stayed. This is the current world situation. If we want stability, we must first ensure that there will be no chaos on the Island of the Gods. The purpose of the Hulk staying on the Island of the Gods is to maintain world stability. After careful consideration, the Super Skrull Jaya believes that the Skrulls need a stable living space, and the forces of Tianshan Island are a good choice. More importantly, what if Rory comes back after she leaves? Will he retaliate against her? You know, all the experiments Rory did on her turned into fear engraved in Jiaya's heart. So before she was sure that Rory was dead, Jiaya didn't dare to have any ill thoughts. In this way, the world pattern is very clear. the whole world revolves around the world government to carry out zombie cleanup and post-war reconstruction work. The celestial island has an exclusive status. Although Asgard is independent, it cannot challenge the authority of the celestial island. Everything seemed to have calmed down with Rory's departure, but only Strange knew that the Earth was on the brink of the abyss and could fall into the dark abyss at any time. Time flies and another half-month passes. Well prepared, Strange returns to the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies in New York, where he plans to enter the multiverse through the magical Keeley Point. King, please take good care of the barrier magic while I'm gone. Master Wong nodded, don't worry, I will. Then Strange began to cast a spell. It was not an easy task to open the dimensional rift. It would be much easier if someone from another universe cooperated to open the doors on both sides at the same time. He did not have the powerful magic power and dark book to help him like Scarlet Witch, so he could only use the magic power of the sanctuary to tear open a little dimensional crack. Call. A strong wind suddenly blew up in the Holy of Holies, and the wind was so strong that the two people could not open their eyes. Then a purple crack appeared in front of Strange. There was a vague figure moving on the other side, but it was impossible to see clearly. Strange nodded to the wizard named Wong, and then walked in as if he were still a stranger. Just when the dimensional rift was about to close, Strange actually walked out of the rift again. Mage Wong was stunned and asked in surprise, so fast? Where's your magic cloak? What did you say? Strange looked around and then looked at the wizard named Wong. The next second, the third eye on Strange's forehead opened. Only the space-time rift closed, and Anthony appeared on an unfamiliar street holding Rory, and then Wanda suddenly appeared beside him with Kathy. Boss, how do you feel? Anthony helped Rory sit against the wall and asked with concern. Rory was so weak and unconscious that he couldn't even speak. Wanda squatted down, raised her hand and released red magic on Rory's body. After checking around, she didn't find anything wrong. How is he? Kathy asked nervously. Wanda shook her head, I don't feel anything is wrong. It's best to send him to the hospital for a checkup. Afterwards, the few of them briefly learned about the current situation. Through advertisements, newspapers, maps, and other information, they determined that their current location was in New York City, and the nearest hospital was only 2 kilometers away. Rory was rushed to the hospital without delay, where he was examined and given medicine. After a busy period, they found that the needle could not penetrate Rory's skin at all. Finally, a quack doctor came and gave Rory some oral anti-inflammatory drugs and nutritional supplements, and that was the end of the treatment. After settling Rory down, Wanda said to Anthony and Kathy, you stay here and guard the place. I'm going to go out for a while. She needed to know more about the current situation of this world, and she wanted to know whether the vision of this universe was still alive. Kathy, feeling melancholy, also stood up and glanced at Rory, whose eyes were lifeless on the bed, and said, I'll go downstairs and get something to eat. Kathy was very worried about Rory, and also about her family who stayed on the other side. However, the situation was like this now. Since they were already here, they could only take care of the present first. In the end, only the dazed Rory and the cold-faced Anthony were left in the ward. After leaving the hospital, Wanda asked around on the street for a long time, and then went to the library to check online information and newspapers, but she didn't find any information about the Avengers. Is there no Avengers in this world? Without Iron Man, there would be no Stark Corporation and Tony Stark. If there was no Tony Stark, would Vision still appear? Wanda thought that she could see Vision after traveling through the multiverse, but now it seems that she thought too simply. Walking out of the library, Wanda suddenly realized that something was wrong with her surroundings. Space overlaps, copies, rotates, and is a mirrored space. Wanda asked in surprise, strange. A team of wizards appeared in the mirror space. The Sorcerer Supreme leading them was not Strange, but the wizard Mordo, who few people knew. Chapter 112 What is it like to paralyze yourself? Rory felt very strange. He could see himself, as if his soul was wandering around his body, but could not return to his body. From Rory's perspective, his body was wrapped in golden and dark energies, which were fighting for control of his body. The golden energy is the cosmic energy he has always used, which is normal, but what is the black one? Could it be the dark hold that Wanda used? But Rory had never come into contact with the dark hold, so why would he have such a thing in his body? Rory really wanted to ask Wanda, but Wanda couldn't see him at all. After sending her to the hospital, Wanda left. Rory wanted to follow her but couldn't walk too far, as if there was a string tying him to his body. This is really, up. What the hell is going on? Unable to find help, Rory began to try to control the cosmic energy in his body in soul state, hoping to suppress the black energy by controlling the cosmic energy and then wake himself up. But after trying several times, Rory found that he could not mobilize the energy of the universe at all, and there was no possibility of communication at all. Instead, the black energy obeyed him very well. What the hell is going on? Can someone explain it to me? Rui had 1,000 questions in his mind, but unfortunately no one could give him a reasonable explanation. Well, I want to see what you are. Since I can't control the golden cosmic energy, I'll try to control the black energy to dominate my body. Perhaps I can also find a way to wake up. Rui stood beside the bed and looked at his body. Then he raised his hand and snapped his fingers, and a black mist emerged from his mind. The black mist coiled around Soul Rui's fingertips, as if cheering. Rui smiled, feeling a little curious. The left hand controlled the black mist to enter the body and try to establish a connection with the body. The next second, the left hand of the body really moved. Anthony immediately caught the moment his left hand twitched, and was so frightened that he quickly stood up to check the situation. Boss. Boss. What's wrong? How is Rory? Kathy, who came back with fast food, also ran over immediately. Anthony explained, I just saw the boss's finger move, but then there was no reaction. Maybe it's a nerve problem. Massage can help alleviate that. Kathy put down her fast food, lifted Rory's left hand and began to massage it vigorously. Soul Rory continued to control the black mist to manipulate his left hand. Kathy, who was massaging, suddenly felt Rory's fingers clenched and grasped her fingers in his palm. Ah! It's really moving. Call a doctor. Anthony hurried out of the ward to call the doctor, but when the doctor came and checked, he didn't find anything wrong. Soul Rui has found a way to control the black energy and begins to try to control all the black energy in his body to expel the golden cosmic energy. The two energies played a game of cat and mouse in Rory's body. When Rui expels the cosmic energy from his left hand, the cosmic energy will flow to his right hand. When he expels the cosmic energy from his chest, the cosmic energy will escape to his limbs. It is impossible to completely dispel it. After trying for a long time, I didn't realize it was already late at night. Wanda didn't come back. Anthony was standing by the bed like an ice sculpture, and Kathy was sleeping soundly in another bed. Soul Rui had no intention of giving up and continued to control the black fog to fight for his body. After becoming familiar with the control of the black fog, Rui mobilized all the black energy in his body and concentrated it at one point at once. Wherever the black energy leaves, it will be quickly occupied by golden energy. Even if he extracted all the black energy and let the golden energy spread throughout his body, Rui still felt no signs of waking up. This meant that the golden energy was not the key to his awakening, so the key problem lay in this black energy. What went wrong? Soul Rory glanced at the body's dull eyes. Is it a soul? Rui injected all the black mist gathered in his hands into his brain, dispelling all the golden energy above his neck. Puff. It seemed as if something was broken, and in an instant, Rui's soul was instantly sucked into the body. Ouch. Rory, who was lying on the hospital bed, howled and sat up. Anthony, who was guarding the bed, was frightened and shivered all over. Kathy, who was lying on the hospital bed, was awakened from her sleep immediately. Rory, you're awake. Kathy rushed over in surprise. Page 98. Of them, Kathy was the most insecure. Her family was left in another universe, and the only person she could rely on was Rory, who turned into a vegetable. When Rory woke up, Kathy felt much more at ease. Hiss, it hurts. Rui's soul came back, but his whole body was sore and uncomfortable. You have to know that his body has been strengthened many times and has gained the strongest physique. If he can feel unbearable pain, you can imagine how painful it is. If it were an ordinary person, he might have died from the pain. Does it hurt? I'll go find a doctor and get you some painkillers. Kathy carefully put Rory down, stood up, and went to find a doctor to get some medicine. Rui gritted his teeth and said, it's useless, don't bother. Normal medicines cannot cure Rui's body, perhaps it is related to the unknown serum he injected. Anthony, I need a lab to check my own body. Boss, what do you need me to do? Rui suddenly regretted it. If he had known how painful it would be, he would not have been in such a hurry to let his soul return to his body. Now he could only grit his teeth and force himself to say, take me to a biological laboratory or a medical testing facility. I need some equipment. Okay, boss. I'll go find it right away. Biological laboratories are not easy to find, but medical testing institutions are almost everywhere. Anthony soon found a medical testing laboratory not far away. At daybreak, Anthony ran back to the hospital. Boss, I found it. There's a drug testing company in Brooklyn. It looks pretty big. Okay, take me there right away. Anthony reached out and wanted to carry Rory away. Rory endured the pain and complained, can't you find me a wheelchair? Oh, sorry, boss. It was indeed strange to see two grown men hugging each other. Kathy covered her forehead with her hands to express her speechlessness. She was attracted by Luo Rui's appearance and knowledge. It was normal to like such a person, and any woman would like him. But after getting to know him for a long time, you will find that no matter how outstanding a man is, there is always some youthfulness hidden in his heart. The more you understand him, the more you will feel that he is a child. If one day you suddenly find that this man has matured overnight, it means that he will no longer open his heart to you. Anthony pushed the wheelchair, and Kathy followed beside him. The three of them left the hospital and rushed to the drug testing company. I came too early and the door wasn't open yet. Anthony didn't care about anything. He took out his alloy bone knife and easily cut the lock, then pushed Rory into the office building. The alarm was out of power, the monitoring equipment was turned off, and the elevator was unusable, so Anthony carried his wheelchair up the stairs. Soon the three of them arrived at the laboratory floor. The alloy bone knife easily opened the door lock of the laboratory, and Kathy pushed the wheelchair into the laboratory. Kathy, go get a centrifuge tube and an extractor, and use a beaker to fill them with EDTA, gentian violet solution, 2-amino and 3-methyl. Rory listed a bunch of tools and chemical reagents and instructed Kathy on how to use them in the right amounts to synthesize the extractant. Then he instructed Anthony, use an alloy knife to make a small incision in my upper jugular vein and draw a 20 ml blood sample. After locating and marking, Anthony pierced Rory's skin and Kathy immediately drew blood. Although Rory's recovery ability is not as exaggerated as Anthony's self-healing gene, it is equally strong. The draw is done, what's next? Anthony pushed Rory to the lab table, and Rory knew Kathy was doing the operation. First, a portion of the blood sample is taken out and added with a chemical extractant, and then placed in a centrifuge for serum gene separation. The precipitate was sieved out, and the extracted genes were added to gentian violet solution to color the chromosomes for subsequent observation and testing. Okay, put the gene solution under the microscope and push me over. I want to see it for myself. Pushing Rory to the microscope, Rory stretched his neck but still couldn't reach it. Finally, Anthony dragged Rory's body so that he could see the magnifying glass of the microscope. Kathy is keeping track for me. Kathy immediately found a pen and paper. The nucleus loses its activity, cell division ceases, and the cell membrane is damaged to varying degrees. In a word, there is no part of Rory's genes that is intact now. The reason he is still alive now is because his genes are strong enough so that he won't collapse even if they are damaged. If the injury was any more serious, this body would be reduced to ashes in an instant. Even for Luo Rui, who had experienced many ups and downs, the fear he felt now was not enough to be described as lingering fear. At the same time, he also became curious about Mr. Immortal's immortal genes again. If I could go back, I would definitely study Mr. Immortal's genes again. Kathy couldn't understand the data that Rory asked her to record, but from these data, it can be seen that Rory must have been seriously injured. Rory, is there a cure? Luo Rui wanted to shake his head, but found that he couldn't do it at all, so he sighed and said, there is no way at the moment. There is a method, but we lack the raw materials. We can buy whatever we need, and if we can't find it, we can go look for it. It's hard to find. Forget it. Just make me a nerve blocker first. If you want to repair genes, the best way is to get Thanos' complete blood sample and use the intact genes to make up for the damage to the body, which can immediately achieve a cure. Or if we use the genes of the Eternals, the repair effect may be slower, but as long as there is enough time, perhaps 99% of the genes can be repaired. The last method is to find genes from a higher dimension, such as the genes of the gods, to replace the existing genes and complete the enhancement. Apart from these, Luo Rui could hardly think of any other options. What are neuroleptics? Luo Rui explained, it's a drug that blocks the transmission of nerve signals. It's usually used in extreme experiments. Now Rory feels pain all the time, and the pain signal is transmitted to the brain through nerves. Painkillers or anesthetics act on the entire body, including organs and flesh, while nerve blockers only act on the nervous system. After the injection, Rory can stay awake and no longer receive pain signals from his body. Fortunately, this is a drug testing agency with a complete range of materials for making nerve blockers. By the time the medicine was finished, it was already bright and the company employees had started to clock in for work. Luo Rui instructed Anthony, make an incision about 3.5 centimeters above the cervical vertebrae and insert a needle. By implanting a needle inside, Anthony won't have to undergo surgery again every time a nerve blocker is injected. Anthony did as he was told, cut an opening with an alloy bone knife, and then placed the needle inside, leaving a little exposed outside so that it could be connected to the syringe each time he injected the medicine. After inserting the needle, Kathy immediately injected a ready-made nerve blocker into Rory's nerve end. Hiss whoosh. The drug injection immediately blocked the nerve transmission signals, and the pain disappeared. Luo Rui felt relieved instantly. I can no longer feel the pain, and I can no longer feel my body. Only my brain is still functioning. Damn, my luck is so bad that I actually had to fight with the six-barreled god. Kathy put the remaining medicine into a box and was about to leave when an employee from the drug testing agency suddenly walked in from outside. Who are you guys? Chapter 113, A World Shrouded in Light. Rory and the other two came out of the drug testing agency. Although there was a small incident just now, Anthony still solved those minor problems very well. Anthony was pushing the wheelchair, and Kathy, who was walking beside him, asked, "Where are we going now?" "I don't know. Let's go eat something first, and then find a place to stay. The most important things in life are food, clothing, housing, and transportation. If these things are not resolved, nothing else can be done." "Where's Wanda?" "Don't worry about her, she won't die anyway," Rory said indifferently. "Wanda, who has practiced the dark book, is not a good person, and there are very few people who can kill her." They found a fast food restaurant. Anthony pushed Rory to the table, and Kathy went to order. The combination of the three of them walking together is a bit weird, a disabled person pushing a paralyzed person in a wheelchair, and also with a little beauty. It does look very incongruous. Just as Kathy was ordering, a few hooligans who must have just woken up from a nap on a park bench whistled at her. Kathy, who didn't want to cause trouble, pretended not to see it and continued to order food seriously. "A few hooligans were actually taking advantage of me. One of them came over and teased me, 'Hey girl, why are you following those two cripples? Why don't you join us? We promise to make you suffer.' Who are you? Let me go." The crippled Anthony, as the gangster called him, lifted him into the air with one hand. The gangster turned his head to look at Anthony, and was about to shout a few more words, but Anthony in front of him suddenly turned into a ferocious beast with a green face and fangs. His eyes were suddenly bloodshot, and his triangular teeth were extremely sharp, as if they could bite his head off at any time. "Ah!" The gangster was yelling and waving his hands and feet like a madman, and then his pants became wet, and an unknown liquid dripped down his trouser legs onto the floor of the restaurant. The other diners around immediately looked at him with disgust. Even the gang's friends laughed at him mercilessly. Anthony was also confused and couldn't help wondering, is he really that scary in appearance? Of course Anthony wouldn't turn into a monster, it was all Rory's doing. Although Rory's body could not move, his brain could still be used, for example, to create a small illusion. Page 99. Anthony threw the gangster away, and the incontinent gangster rushed out of the restaurant as if running for his life, shouting "Devil." Just when Rory was using illusion, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He could mobilize the energy of the universe through his brain, but there seemed to be another energy in his brain. After trying to move it, a black mist immediately appeared in front of Rory. Damn, is that black energy? Rory never knew he had this thing in him. It must have appeared after the fight with Alyssum. Is it the colorless unknown serum? Or is it something else? Rory tried to use the black mist energy and found that the black mist was not material. It would pass through the tables, chairs, or coffee cups and seemed unable to interfere with reality. However, when the black fog approaches the overhead light bulb, the light bulb will flicker. It cannot interfere with reality, but it does affect energy. No wonder it can compete with the cosmic energy in his body. It seems that the characteristic of the black fog is to create connections in the energy, but Rory has not found a way to use it yet. After leaving the restaurant, they found an apartment hotel to stay in. Kathy paid for the expenses and she pawned her watch at a pawn shop. After settling in, Anthony waved his hand, motioning Kathy to go outside and talk with him. Kathy glanced at Rory, who was sitting in a wheelchair by the window looking at the scenery, and then followed Anthony out the door. "Miss Kathy, I need to go out for a while. Please help take care of the boss." Kathy asked doubtfully, "Where are you going?" "We really need money now. I'll go get some and redeem your watch for you." The need for money is a very real problem. After Anthony left, Kathy returned to the apartment. Rory, who had his back to her, suddenly said, "Anthony is very sensible. There's nothing to worry about." Kathy was stunned. "Did you hear everything?" Rory chuckled, "Not only can I hear it, I can even see it, like the surprised expression on your face right now." Kathy came over and sat by the window in front of Rory and asked curiously, "How did you do that?" There was a black fog hanging above Rory's head at this time, but Kathy couldn't see it. This is also the ability he just discovered. The black fog can bring him sensory perception, such as seeing, hearing and smelling and so on. Rory didn't know how to explain it, so he just said, "You can think of it as a kind of spiritual superpower. Although I'm not very mobile now, I'm not really useless." After saying that, a completely healthy Rory suddenly appeared behind the wheelchair, and he even smiled and waved to Kathy. "Hi Kathy, How are you? After saying this, he disappeared in an instant. Ah, is this your superpower? Kathy covered her mouth and widened her eyes in surprise. You could think so. Rory chatted with Kathy for a while and comforted her heart because of her insecurity about traveling through the multiverse. After Kathy became more cheerful, the two began to understand the world. From countries and regions to companies and enterprises, as well as superheroes and major events that have happened. What Rory wants to know most is whether there is Thanos in this world, which is related to whether his body can be repaired. After searching on the internet, I learned that this world had once been invaded by Thanos, but unfortunately Thanos is dead. But it was not the Avengers who destroyed Thanos, but an organization called the Illuminati. Illuminati? Rory explained, you can think of it as a superhero organization like the Avengers. Fortunately, Rory did not find any news about the revival of the Celestials. Maybe the Eternals still live on Earth. Now that Thanos is gone, it is possible to use the Eternals to deal with him. Huh. The news just broke, the witch is fighting the Illuminati's guardian wizard. Look, Rory, it's Wanda. Rory glanced at the photo on the news and confirmed, it's Wanda for sure. I didn't expect her to confront the Illuminati so soon. The Illuminati and the Avengers do things at completely different extremes. The Avengers' main purpose is to save, while the Illuminati's style of action is to kill all threats. Wanda's practice of the Dark Book will definitely arouse the vigilance of the Guardian Wizard. Judging from the nature of the Illuminati, they don't need to determine whether Wanda is good or bad. As long as they are sure that Wanda has practiced dark magic, they will definitely take action against her. What should we do? Should we help her? If Wanda, will we never be able to go back? Rory said steadily, no rush, let's understand the situation first. It's true that the Illuminati is very powerful, and Wanda is not weak either. She is the only heir to Sithon's power of chaos, and the power of chaos is far more powerful than people can imagine. Time comes tonight. Kathy was in the kitchen making some simple dinner. During the 5 years that Scott disappeared, Kathy lived alone and took care of her own food and daily life. Just as they finished making bacon and eggs and pasta, there was a knock on the door of the hotel apartment. Rory, who was watching TV, said, Kathy, open the door. Anthony is back. Kathy, wearing an apron, dried her hands and opened the door, and it was indeed Anthony who came in. Anthony was holding a travel bag full of things in his hands. Rory, who had his back to the door, smiled and said, it's a good harvest. Anthony looked at Rory in confusion, and when he was sure that Rory had his back to him, he became even more confused. Kathy smiled as if she was used to it. Anthony put the travel bag he was carrying on the coffee table and opened it, finding it was full of US dollars. Rory didn't ask, but Kathy couldn't help but ask curiously, did you rob a bank? I borrowed this from the gang. Then Anthony took out the watch that Kathy pawned from his pocket. Thank you. Kathy's beloved watch was returned to her and she happily put it on her wrist. Dinner is ready, I'll bring it over. In appreciation of Kathy's hard work, Rory ate a few simple bites. In fact, it doesn't matter whether Rory eats or not. Although his body is severely damaged, he can continue to absorb cosmic energy. The cosmic energy will stimulate the divine genes in his body to continue producing blood. He will feel hungry, but he will not starve to death. And you don't need to worry about going to the toilet after eating, because the food that enters the body will be completely crushed and absorbed by the body, and then turned into energy and absorbed by the body completely. The only thing he needed to worry about was taking a bath. Of course, he would never let Anthony help him take a bath. After dinner, Kathy, exhausted both physically and mentally, quickly fell asleep. Anthony pushed Rory into another room and talked about everything he had learned after going out today. Boss, this world is very different from ours. Well, tell me in detail. Then Anthony told him everything he knew. Boss, Thanos once invaded Earth and was defeated by an organization called the Illuminati. There is no Wakanda, no Asgard, and no Celestial Island, but there is an alien race called the Inhumans. The Inhumans are a race created by the Kree through experiments, and each member of the Inhumans has different superpowers. The leader Black Bolt is known as the third most powerful human in the universe. He can destroy a city with just one word. Unfortunately, his crappy teammate Mr. Fantastic took the initiative to expose his weakness, and then staged a brain-destructing drama in front of Scarlet Witch Wanda. Can you find the location of the Illuminati headquarters? Anthony thought for a moment and said, the Illuminati is very famous, so it shouldn't be difficult. Whether it is an enemy or a friend, it will never be wrong to understand the other party's background first. There's another piece of news. Wanda, who came with us, fought with the Illuminati. She killed 2 Illuminati mages. Fortunately, they weren't caught. Now there's news everywhere about Wanda's wanted list. The fact that the news media and officials reacted so quickly shows that the Illuminati has a very strong influence in this world. Rory didn't want to cause trouble, he just wanted to find a way to repair his body as soon as possible. Tomorrow you will do a few things for me. The first thing is to help me check if there are any clues about the Eternals in this world. The second thing is to investigate the location of the Illuminati's headquarters. The last thing is to keep an eye on Wanda's whereabouts. Good boss. Even if the probability is low, Rory must not let the Illuminati capture Wanda, because Wanda is his only hope to return to the world of Celestial Island. The God Island is Rory's foundation. Even if Alyssum, the god of that universe, will not let him go, even if he cannot go back for the time being, at least communication must be established. It allows Kathy to see her family and she can mobilize troops at any time. Most importantly, if he cannot find the materials to repair his body in this world, the blood serum stored in the laboratory of Tiantian Island is his last chance. P.S. Thanks to the book friend 20230201165990 for the reward of 1666, thanks to the book friend Longzinyo for the reward of 100, thanks to the book friend E. Ording for the reward of 100, thanks to the book friend God of Death Li Meng for the reward of 100. Chapter 114 You'd better do what I advise you. The Illuminati members include Mr. Fantastic, Professor X, and Black Bolt. So there is a high probability that this world will have the other three members of the Fantastic Four, mutants, Inhumans, or some other mess. If it weren't for his health problems, Rory would really like to stay and do some detailed research on these people. The next morning, Anthony went out to find out the news without even having breakfast. It was already past 9 o'clock when Kathy woke up. As soon as she got up, she saw a mask of pain on Rory's face. He quickly found a nerve-blocking drug from his luggage, opened a needle embedded in the back of his neck and injected the drug. Rory, how are you? Much better. Although the potion was effective, the duration of its effect was still too short for Rory, whose body had been strengthened. I was just playing with the black mist energy out of boredom when the effect of the medicine suddenly wore off. I felt pain and numbness, and it was as uncomfortable as if I had stepped on an electric wire. Kathy glanced at the time on her watch and said dejectedly, one potion only lasts about 24 hours, and we only made less than 50 yesterday. Sigh. Page 100. Rory smiled and said, the longer it goes on, the shorter the duration of the drug's effects will be. Perhaps we can find a solution within a month and a half. Kathy put away the nerve-blocking drug and was about to get up to make breakfast when she suddenly heard heavy footsteps outside the door, followed by a knock on the door. Kathy was about to open the door when Rory, who was in a wheelchair, suddenly said, Kathy, don't resist later. What? Before Kathy could react to what Rory meant, the door of the hotel apartment was suddenly opened from the outside. Then a group of people armed to the teeth with guns rushed in. Don't move. Hands up and get on the ground. I told you to get down, did you hear me? Kathy understood this time and obediently raised her hands and leaned against the wall. Rory, who was in a wheelchair, said speechlessly, are you blind? I'm paralyzed, how can you ask me to lie down? Two armed men came up to Rory with guns in hand, not daring to relax at all. They then signaled another companion to come over and lock Rory's hands and feet. It's normal to be cautious, but it's too much for a paralyzed person. On the other side, a man wanted to search Kathy. Rory glared at him and said, I advise you not to touch him, or you will regret it. The man ignored Rory's warning and continued to reach out to Kathy. Just when he was about to touch Kathy, the scene in front of him suddenly changed and his vision suddenly became pitch black. Other colleagues noticed that this person was in a daze, and patted his shoulder in confusion and asked, hey man, what's wrong with you? Thump, thump, thump. The man who wanted to search Kathy suddenly went crazy and pointed the gun at his colleague, pulling the trigger without any hesitation. FK, Mick, what are you doing? Others thought he was crazy, but in Mick's eyes, all his colleagues turned into hideous and terrifying monsters. Empty the magazine one shot after another. When the submachine gun runs out of bullets, switch to a pistol. When the pistol is empty, switch to a tactical dagger. The apartment suddenly became a mess. Damn it. Mick's crazy. Fire. Fire. Shoot him. In just a moment, two people fell under the man's gun, and then he stabbed a colleague's neck with a tactical dagger. Bang. A bullet pierced Mick's temple, and the crazy Mick finally stopped. Damn it, what did he just do? The next second, everyone's eyes turned to Rory who was sitting in the wheelchair. It's you who did this. Whoa. 6 or 7 guns were pointed at Rory. Rory kept his eyelids drooping calmly, with no intention of speaking at all. Guns. He's not afraid of missiles. Take it away. The sudden incident resulted in the death of several colleagues. Although Luo Rui was suspected, he could not do anything to him because he had no evidence. I can only take the two of them back first. However, after what happened just now, no one dared to touch Kathy. They could only point the gun at Kathy and signal her to leave on her own. Entering the elevator, Luo Rui, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly said, "Don't be afraid, Kathy. If they dare to hurt you, I will make them pay the price." Under normal circumstances, Rory's threats would be a joke in the eyes of these armed forces, but now no one is laughing. Something bizarre and strange happened just a minute ago, and they couldn't help but believe it. After leaving the apartment hotel, Rory was taken into a car. A man with a badge on his chest took off his hood and stared at Rory. Luo Rui looked back and asked, "Were they sent by the Illuminati?" The man put his hand on the gun, as if on guard against Rory. Seeing Luo Rui taking the initiative to talk to him, he snorted coldly and said, "You'll know later." Luo Rui was not surprised that the Illuminati could mobilize official power. The fact that they could find them so quickly meant that the Illuminati had not caught Wanda, so they were targeting them. Luo Rui chuckled and said, "I advise you to be kind to us. If we are wronged, my friend will probably do something bad." The man replied disdainfully, "You'd better pray that he doesn't do that. The Illuminati won't show mercy like we do." The Illuminati is becoming more and more interesting. The convoy arrived in front of a high-rise building. Rory and Kathy were taken into the building by the armed team and then took the elevator underground. Rory and Kathy were then imprisoned in two separate cells. Kathy, who was sitting against the wall, asked through the wall, "Rory, what do they mean by bringing us here and locking us up? What else could it mean? Of course we're waiting for someone who can make the decision to come. Dark magic is forbidden in this world, and as soon as Wanda appears, she is targeted by Baron Mordo, the supreme wizard of this world. The Scarlet Witch, who practices the Dark Book, is not the kind of person who spoils children. She immediately lets Baron Mordo know what real magic is. Even in the mirror space, it was as easy as a joke for Wanda to control a few little wizards. The result was naturally that Wanda was not caught. After investigation, it was found that there were several other people who appeared with Wanda, from the hospital and drug testing agency, and finally to the hotel apartment. They were lucky that Anthony was not there, otherwise none of them would have come back alive. Rory released the black mist through the wall and observed the building, and found that it was just a very ordinary law enforcement agency. Then I saw a few people walking in from outside the building and getting into the elevator. One of them was wearing standard Guardian Mage attire, the other was wearing a bodysuit with a 4 logo on the chest. Mr. Fantastic and Baron Mordo. Luo Rui recognized the two people at a glance. The black fog followed the two into the elevator. Baron Mordo, who was chatting with Mr. Fantastic, suddenly had his hair stand on end and showed a nervous expression. "What's wrong?" Mr. Fantastic asked puzzledly, realizing that something was wrong. Mordo looked up and looked around, and said nervously, "The power of death, I feel the energy of the power of death, it is near us." Not only Mr. Fantastic and Baron Mordo were shocked, but Rory himself was also shocked. "Goddamn power of death, what? I was kissed by the goddess of death?" The goddess of death that Rory mentioned is not Hela from Asgard, nor is she Leo, the god of death who reaps lives everywhere, but Death, one of the 5 gods of creation. She is the embodiment of rules and the supreme controller of life and death. Looking back now, Luo Rui did feel very strange. The power of death inexplicably appeared in his body. If he was awake, he would definitely be able to feel this energy, but he did not discover it until the 6-barreled god Alyssum appeared, which means that the energy of death must not have existed before. The gods use the most primitive cosmic energy, which is completely different from the power of death. Luo Rui also uses cosmic energy, so where does the power of death come from? Luo Rui couldn't figure it out. Perhaps only someone who truly understood magic could give him a reasonable answer. A moment after taking back the power of death, Mr. Fantastic and Baron Mordo came to the underground prison and appeared in front of Rory and Kathy. "Hello, my two friends from another world. I'm Reed and this is Mordo. We came here just to find out where your witch friend went." Kathy stood up and said, "Sir, we are not familiar with that witch. If you want to catch her, just go ahead and catch her. Why do you want to catch us as well? Because you come from another universe, this is a very dangerous thing for us." Mordo walked to Luo Rui's cell, squatted outside the fence, looked at Luo Rui in the wheelchair and asked, "I heard that one of the people who came to arrest you went crazy, so you are a magician, right?" Mordo had clearly felt the power of death in the elevator just now. He suspected it was Luo Rui, so he was testing him as soon as he opened his mouth. Luo Rui in the wheelchair chuckled, "I remember that magicians need to cast spells, right? How can I cast spells in my current state? Maybe you have your own way. If you think so, then I can't help it." Mordo. Mr. Fantastic, Can you tell me why you're here? I was kidnapped by that woman who used magic. Kathy was right. Rory, me too. Mr. Fantastic and Baron Mordo looked at each other and said, perhaps we should ask Professor Charles to come over. Maybe we can get the truth out of their heads. In today's world, because the previous Sorcerer Supreme, Strange, used dark magic, the Earth lost its magical protection barrier and the dimensional space barrier became extremely weak. Things that cross the multiverse often happen, and the arrival of Rory and his companions is not an isolated case, so the Illuminati is very serious about such events. Although Kathy next door didn't know Professor Charles, she knew it must be something bad. Sir, you can see I'm just a little girl, and my friend is incapable of movement and relies on a wheelchair. We pose no threat, he said hurriedly. Mr. Fantastic Reed shook his head. The Illuminati will decide how to deal with you. You two can't go anywhere until the decision is made. Medicine, my friend needs it once a day, give it back to us. Thanks to Kathy's efforts, Rory's nerve blocker was finally retrieved. Chapter 115, Another Way to Use Superpowers. Mr. Fantastic and Baron Mordo walked out of the law enforcement building and had just gotten into the car to leave when a one-armed man walked out from behind the flower bed. This person is Anthony, the Deathblade. He stood behind a billboard and observed the law enforcement building. He memorized all the details in his mind, snorted coldly, and turned away. As night fell, Anthony came to the law enforcement agency again and walked inside with a grim face. Alright legends, that's it for today. Like, subscribe, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.